Hey everyone, so this is going to be a re-recording since Megatron has gotten his dastardly hands on our files. So if anything in this doesn't really line up with what we've referenced in future episodes, this is why.
We recorded the original audio for episode 6 a few months ago, but in the process of editing it was lost. So
Lost to the stars.
So this is our second take of this episode. We did not have time to re-watch the episodes discussed, but we still have our script from that episode, and we'll be going off of that.
Hopefully we'll find some more things to dig into and maybe even trim the fat a little bit. Who knows?
And without further ado, let's get into our intro.
Four million years ago on the planet Earth, two brothers started watching Transformers media, and now they are going to make it your problem. Hi, I'm Hayden.
And I'm Frankie.
And welcome to BroBots in Disguise, where we are going through and discussing every episode of every major Transformers cartoon.
Hey, by the way, happy 40th anniversary to the Transformers brand as a whole this year.
Woohoo!
We started recording a few years ago, actually, but just began releasing episodes this year. That's why we are just now mentioning it.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to Season 2 of BroBots in Disguise, where we are starting, Season 2 of the original Transformers animated series, released in 1985. As previously discussed, we will be largely following the episode order for Season 2, as laid out by TF Wiki, with a few minor adjustments for continuity's sake.
And we are kicking off our season with an interesting batch of episodes. One might even say the theme here is body horror.
So much weird biological stuff that happens in this episode.
In today's episodes, another human ally gets turned into a mechanical freak in Autobot Spike. The Autobot Gears is lobotomized to harvest the energy of the sun in Changing Gears. Optimus gets chopped up and turned into an alligator con in City of Steel. And finally, the brainwashed evil Autobots go on a rampage in Attack of the Autobots.
An incredible start, to be sure.
Oh, but before that, I want to discuss something we neglected last season.
What could that be?
The theme song!
The theme song! Yeah, we got a new theme song this season.
Yeah.
Just like the show got a new theme song.
Yeah. So, which Transformers theme song, not the theme song for our podcast, but the Transformers, the show, which one do you like better? The Season 1 theme song, the Season 2 theme song, or the Japanese theme song?
Okay, so...
By the way, in Japan, this series was called Fight Super Robot Lifeforms, the Transformers, which I think is just fantastic.
I like the fact
and it gets
that it's
longer
like...
and longer every subtitle they add to it.
I like that it's very descriptive of the show as a whole, because what happens in Transformers? They fight. What are the Transformers? Super robot life forms.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate. It's a very hyper-specific title.
But yeah, the theme song for the first one, classic. Love the robot voices, love the way it sounds. But that Season 2, it's such a bop, you know? It's just got that 80s groove to it.
Yeah, if we're going off of music, the original is iconic for a reason. But Season 2, it's got like a good little groove to it. It feels less musically terrifying.
Yeah.
Because if you really break down the Season 1 intro, it's just da 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 da.
Yeah. And then the Japanese version, I want to use it as an alarm clock because like the first lyrics are something like "Wake up, get up."
Yeah,
I love it.
It's pretty good.
It's great. It's so much fun. It's got that classic, like Zeta Gundam energy to it.
Yeah.
It's so much
It feels
fun.
like a mecha opening.
Right. Now, I'd also like to point out that the intro videos themselves that play along with the theme songs show us some interesting stuff. Can we analyze those for a second before we get to the episode?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, the Japanese one, It's pretty much the same as the season 1, but they add some footage from the show to pad it out for length of the song, because the song's a little bit longer than, these are like 45 seconds, and then the anime one's like a minute.
Yeah.
A minute and a half or something, But season 1 intro. The season 1 intro is mostly just showing off the main idea of the show very effectively.
Yes.
We see there are 2 factions with their symbols coming from space. They are robots that can transform into vehicles that fight in canyons and near a volcano. And the lyrics go over this stuff too, That's basically season 1 in a nutshell.
Right.
I like when Skywarp throws Jazz, he transforms to recover and comes back for an attack. I feel like that's like a technique that should be used way more often.
Yeah, you see that in like games like War for Cybertron and stuff, where the fluidity of going between vehicle mode to robot mode feels underutilized.
Transformers Devastation does a really good job of allowing you to work transformation into your fights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the vehicle modes themselves have attacks and stuff.
And I love seeing that integrated into the TV shows as well, and I feel like it should be used a lot more.
Yeah, and it's like you see that that's like the most common technique is doing like kind of a rebound from a fight is break away, transform, do a loop, and then come back and go in for another attack.
Well, I believe we even have a note about this in one of our episode discussions later in this podcast episode. But we'll get to that later. I also find Optimus holding his arm over his head during the group shooting shot rather funny.
Yeah. Like, my eyes!
Lore-wise, there's not really anything we don't already get from the show, unlike the Season 2 intro.
Yes.
Where this intro does the same thing with showing the conflict with the new characters. But at the start, we see Jupiter and Cybertron next to it. This could be just, space.
Could.
Yeah, this could just be, a metaphorical space, Cybertron, whatever. But I like to think that this is probably where Cybertron ended up after Countdown to Extinction. And the Ultimate Doom, when it goes out of Earth's orbit, that it got either caught in the orbit of Jupiter or it's in a similar orbit around the sun near Jupiter.
Yeah.
Which would explain a lot about how space bridge technology is easier in Season 2 and stuff like that.
Right.
And how they can just fly to Cybertron sometimes,
And it's like, it's hard to think about, like, well, it's going through space. There's no friction in space. How did it slow down? But it's like, it's a small enough planet to where it can get caught into an orbit of some kind.
Right. It's referred to as like a wandering planet in the Marvel comics or something. Yeah. And even though we never see Jupiter from Cybertron in Season 2, it's probably, either they're not, close to each other if they're in the same orbital path around the sun, or if it is orbiting Jupiter, the camera's just facing away from Jupiter every time. Yeah.
That's why we don't see this giant red thing in the sky every time we go to Cybertron.
But this is also one of the few other sides of Cybertron we see in animation.
Yes.
Like, usually it's just that stock photo of the Grand Canyon with the
Cybertron.png.
Right. The Shockwaves Tower at the top and the big hole blown in it in the bottom.
Yeah.
But the logos flying over Cybertron probably represent the new characters coming from beyond Jupiter to Earth as reinforcements. Either coming from deep space, wherever they had ended up, which we'll see in a later episode that that there are Autobot colonies and Decepticon colonies out in the stars. So either they came from outside the solar system, or they took off from Cybertron, flew around Jupiter, flew over Cybertron, and then to Earth.
A little convoluted, but...
Well, you get your... that's actual... physics thing.
Right, the slingshot.
The planetary slingshot, where you go around it a couple times to build up speed.
Right.
And then also another lore bit that I wanted to point out. When the Insecticons are wading through the lava, this always implied to me that they were used to dig out Megatron from the lava at the end of Heavy Metal War.
Yeah.
Because they all end up in the lava, and then maybe the Insecticons swam in there, picked them up, got them out, and it's like...
And it's funny, because it's just like... just wading through lava, like
it's
nothing.
It reminds me of I think is it Overhaul in Cybertron, who wades into the lava to prepare himself for the dragon fire.
Yes.
But anyway,
it's like a hot bath.
yeah. Speaking of a hot bath, did Omega Supreme kill Blitzwing?
He's like completely
he steps on
crunched.
Yeah.
And then Scrapper comes in and scoops him up and takes him back. But like that even builds up the idea of this intro showcasing like this is the state of what this show is about. Is that no matter what, even if it looks like a character is dead, they're probably going to come back because one, it's a cartoon, but two, it's that the Transformers always, like, no matter how beat up they get, they usually get repaired and then come back, like, a couple episodes later.
Unless you're in the movie.
Unless you're in the movie.
But yeah.
Unless you're on the cutting room floor for the new toys coming in.
Right. Dinobots make a little show up in there, and also I always wondered, when's it going to happen when they fight on that grid in space and get sucked into a wormhole? Is that going to be part of the show?
Sadly.
I think we see that in other shows, though.
Yeah.
But enough of
and
that.
it's funny because you actually see the grid, like the 80s neon grid, show up in a lot of promotional material for Transformers.
Right.
From this.
Yeah. A lot of the package art has that laser grid.
It's kind of a euphemism for G1 now.
Yeah.
Like,
Season 1 has it in their theme song. Lego Space has it.
Yeah.
In several of their lines from this era.
I don't know if that's an explicit reference, but
no, it's not a reference to Transformers. That's just like the 80s thing at that time. You know?
But you could see it now with like a lot of the nostalgia marketing and stuff towards G1. And anything Transformers related usually has this grid attached to it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily this specific one, but a 80s neon grid.
That's why there needs to be like some sort of Transformers Warhammer game.
There we go.
I'm actually working on like a little like a Warhammer-esque tabletop war game for using Transformer toys.
Well, it feels like it would work pretty well for the concept.
It's like something that we would do when we were kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about that. Let's get into our stories.
Yes. So
at the time of this recording, these Transformers episodes are available on Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel as well as DVD and several other streaming services, such as Tubi, I found out.
Yeah. Oddly enough.
Yep. I think you can also get it on Amazon Prime, but you have to like pay for it.
Yeah, it's like the Hasbro Pulse channel has most of the like more well-known Transformer shows up there, and then like Tubi has a lot of them the other ones.
Well, Hasbro Pulse has the G1 cartoon. The Transformers official website, YouTube channel, the Transformers official has episodes from like Prime, Beast Wars, Armada, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
So they've got the other shows, and then for some reason, specifically G1 is on the Hasbro Pulse.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they got their finger on the pulse of pop culture.
Yeah, you know what else had the? I'm sorry, this transition's not working.
So, like something else that didn't work, Autobot Spike.
Hey, saved it.
There we go. Okay.
Would you like to read us off?
Sure. So, Autobot Spike. When Spike is injured in a Decepticon attack, his mind is placed inside Autobot X, Sparkplug's Frankenstein Autobot made of spare parts, while his human body is repaired. This causes him to go insane, and he joins up with Megatron to cause havoc, but switches back when he accidentally endangers his dad. He is then put back to normal.
As you do. First off, I would like to point out that I believe this episode was our first introduction to Transformers.
Yes.
When we were kids...
It's very vague for me, but...
Well, I was a little older at that.
Yeah.
This was like 2004-ish, and we were kids and staying with some relatives on a vacation. One of them had a Transformers collection of toys and DVDs, and they let us watch them, and this... For some reason, this was the first episode, and then I don't remember if we watched Changing Gears or not, but then I also remember watching City of Steel, which we'll bring that up later.
Okay.
Also, I thought for sure this was the episode where they said Witwicky for the only time in the TV series, But I guess that's just a personal Mandela effect because no version of this that I've watched, whether it's the YouTube version or the Shout Factory DVDs that we now have, or the even the chopped up versions on Hasbro's old website, they don't have Witwiki in them.
Yeah, and it's Witwiki was
that's the last
name in the
Spike
comics.
Yeah, for Spike and Sparkplug and Buster.
But it kind of gets retroactively applied to a lot of people who are like the first contact between Autobots and humans.
Yeah, because they use that in the live action movies.
Yeah, it's the Witwikis. There's Spike in the comics. I think Witwiki shows up a lot in like the IDW run as well.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah.
Anyway.
So
it's kind of a theme. And speaking of themes, I see you have monstrous notes about the themes of this episode. Would you like to indulge us?
So, going through this episode, like, I feel like most of these sort of like thematic discussions are not immediately present in the episode itself.
You really have to pick it apart to get to them.
Digging way too deep into it.
Yeah. Which is what this podcast is about.
Exactly.
You know, we're doing a close read of a show you wouldn't think to do a close read of.
Exactly. And I think the close read on this is it touches on where is the line on the ethical differences between Cybertronian and human physiologies.
Yes.
And how does that inform a Cybertronian perspective and a human perspective on what is ethical in like the merging between the two.
Yeah.
And this is a Frankenstein episode essentially. So there's a lot of themes that show up in Frankenstein that are kind of in this.
Right.
But yeah, I'll kind of point those out as they kind of come up and everything.
Okay, you don't want to just talk about it all right now?
So, yeah, it'll, like, as we go, I think it'll, like, kind of organically come up.
I got you. Yeah, and then, you know, our discussion will strengthen your points. Yeah, speaking of Sparkplug, this is kind of like his Dinobot episode, because he's, you know, in that episode, Wheeljack and Ratchet are Frankensteining these Dinobots, but in here, Sparkplug is creating life. And also Teletran gets smashed at one point, I believe, right? But it brings up an interesting point that the Autobots have spare parts for repairs, which is interesting. Is there just like a whole body of like, you know, if you look at Autobot X, he's got parts from like Hound and Sunstreaker and Trailbreaker and Prowl and Optimus and is there just like a full body of extra parts for each of these guys, or is it just like because we see that the Decepticons can take parts off of human aircraft and replace parts on their Earth alt modes in a previous episode. Is that Divide and Conquer, I think?
Yes. They're munching jets.
They're munching jets for lunch. So can Autobots do the same thing? Like if Prowl's wing door gets broken, can he go to the junkyard, pick up a part from the same type of
And if the wing door gets knocked off, does that cause him pain as well?
Yeah. Like where is the line between a Transformer's body and a Transformer's armor? Right?
And that's kind of the question here is one, Ratchet and Wheeljack and Sparkplug kind of have to like come together with this idea of bringing Spike's mind into a Transformer's body. And there's an interesting thing with like where a human's natural physiology starts affecting their viewpoint on what's important or not. And same thing with a Cybertronian.
Yes.
And you have to kind of look at, between the two of them, big differences between Cybertronians and humans. They're fleshy.
Right.
They're
Flesh
fragile.
versus metal.
Right.
Yeah.
They're fragile, they're fleshy. And they have a really weak lifespan, and you know humans are constantly on the verge of death.
Yeah.
So when the threat of death comes to Sparkplug's son, his immediate instinct is, we can save him.
Yeah.
I have this ability now to, like, interact with the uber powerful Cybertronians who seemingly cheat death. Like, when they die, it's not necessarily a guarantee that they're dead.
Yeah.
And they live functionally forever.
Yeah.
They're super durable and everything. They are robots, though. They are robotic life forms. And that question kind of comes up of, like, how does that affect them? And you can kind of see it in little bits and pieces with, like, Ratchet. When B is injured, he's just sort of like, oh yeah, I can fix him up, no problem.
Right.
And stuff at the rocket base. But not really immediately realizing that Spike is in, like, critical condition.
Yeah.
And he's just
Optimus does, though, because he's, you know, that's kind of his character arc throughout season 1, is becoming more in tune with learning about the Earth and, you know, being more, as we discussed last episode, whenever that was recorded, like a year ago or so. His arc over season 1 is, like, not taking things for granted and, like, having a more sort of merciful and empathetic viewpoint.
So even, like, with the Autobots, we see that empathy is an unnatural impulse. Like, Optimus is the only one who, that's his number one thing, is being sure that the humans are all right and looking after the humans.
Right.
It says a lot that Ratchet is just sort of like, oh yeah, we can fix him, whatever. Like that. And you see that there's, like, kind of good and bad perspectives on this from both sides. Is that, you know, Sparkplug, he's like, well, we can save him by plugging him into this cobbled together robot pieces and stuff. But not even really considering, like, the autonomy of the Autobots. They help him out with it.
Right.
But
Wheeljack is the one who comes up with the idea to think that...
Wheeljack has also been proven to not exactly be the most ethical of the Autobots.
But it was his idea to... because at first I was thinking, you know, it goes both ways. Sparkplug doesn't really have a respect for the Autobots' physiology because, you know, he might not really understand it as well as an Autobot would, and that's why his Autobot X, when he first builds it, is just kind of a raving monster, right? You know, and then Wheeljack comes up with the idea to use it as a remote control body for any injured Autobots, so that they can keep, you know, literally a spare part, you know. And then and Ratchet is just horrified. If you look at Ratchet, he makes this face like he's just horrified at the idea of helping with this project.
What have I done?
But the like I was saying earlier, where did he get these spare parts from? Are these the damaged parts that have been replaced by new parts?
Right.
Or are these just spare parts laying around?
Yeah. Also playing into the idea of, you know, Frankenstein is that he, in the book, he dug up, like, dead body parts and stuff. And created other pieces.
Really, he manufactured new pieces out of dead body parts.
Right. But there's also comes the thing of, like, Sparkplug's desperation to save his son. Pushes him to consider options that would normally be considered pretty macabre. But it's interesting to see, like, the intersection between Wheeljack. His ingenuity kind of comes up with a solution of, like, if only we could plug him into this robot body, which a human would not normally think of. But they have the means now. And a human also cobbling together this, like, you know, corpse bot and stuff. The Autobots wouldn't normally think of that either.
Right. It makes sense. That outside perspective coming in to help with a problem that you're stuck on because you only have your experience to draw on.
Right. And this episode is, like, you know, the intersection between all of that. But both of them miss the fundamental thing of Spike's actual will.
Right.
In this, it's like when he gets plugged in and starts like, realizing that he's in this robot body, one of his first things that he says is like, "What have you done?"
Right.
And it's like, "I'm a monster."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It is.
It's kind of interesting to think that he has he very quickly became friends with the Autobots.
Yes.
In the first couple episodes, right?
Despite the differences.
He's never shown an interest in being a robot, though.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I would have been like, "Heck yeah, make me a robot!"
Right. But whenever he wants in the fight, it's usually like, we see in Ultimate Doom, he snags Prowl's gun off of the ground and starts shooting.
Right. Or Jazz's gun in Divide and Conquer, and there's a later Season 2 episode where he has a gun, too.
Yeah, he wants to get into the fight as a human, not necessarily as a Transformer.
He connects... it is like you said, with the humans representing the... that connection, that curiosity, that awe.
Right.
The awe of Transformers and sharing the awe of Earth.
Yeah.
With the Transformers. If he wanted to be a robot, it would take away from that, right?
Right.
So he has to, want to be a human. Even when like Wheeljack says, "Hey, maybe I could make a robot transform for you,"
Yeah.
Which, interesting, all of this really foreshadows the exosuit in the movie.
Yes.
Because I was going to save this for the end of the discussion, but I might as well bring it up now. It's interesting that Spike, after the trauma of this episode, would be willing to... he would want to build an exosuit that makes him... I mean, part of it is necessity. He's on Cybertron. Right. He needs to be able to, fend for himself and not die of, they're not supposedly not being a atmosphere on Cybertron, or at least Cybertron's moons, because there's definitely an atmosphere there in Ultimate Doom, and
it's absorbing Earth's atmosphere.
Divide and Conquer. Is it Divide and Conquer or Roll Out? Anyway,
we always get the name mixed up on those two.
The Space Bridge trilogy.
That one.
Yeah. Anyway,
I did also.
But I think that it's like a closure for him.
Yes.
Like he needs that sort of closure to
overcome that part.
Overcome that part of him, because in Season 3 he never has the exosuit again. I think Daniel does.
Daniel has it a lot.
And then that he would merge with Cerebros in the Rebirth.
Right. That's the ultimate fusion between Cybertronian and human.
Brings it all the way back around.
Right.
And Spike has always represented that union between even when he's a complete dummy, he's still that link between Earth and Cybertron.
Right.
And it's just interesting that this is like a misstep in that character arc.
Yeah, this like awakens how terrifying that concept actually is.
Right.
But it sets up an obstacle that, by overcoming, brings the union between the two that much closer.
Yeah.
And I love, like, even in the Marvel run, you still have that theme with Spike and Cerebros, or Fort Max in that. There's like the whole issue where he's been separated from him for a super long time, and he's like a voice in his head.
In the Marvel comics.
Yeah, and he just doesn't want anything to do with it, but in the end he has to realize, like, that part of me isn't a bad thing. I may not like it, but for the greater good, we're better together than we are apart, sort of thing.
Right.
And trying to remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. And in addition to all of this, I kind of want to appreciate Autobot X's design as well. Because, we mentioned he's like a corpse bot and everything, but you can actually see, like, a lot of the parts are from specific Transformers.
Right.
Like, he's got Prowl's little crest. He has blue streaks, like, right pec.
Yeah. There's a full list on TF Wiki of all the parts.
There's a few that are in there that are just kind of like bits and bobs. Like, they're not really from anybody specific, but it makes sense why he has so many different abilities in the later part of this episode, because they're pulled from different parts of Autobots, which brings into question power chip rectifiers. Like,
does he just have those power chip rectifiers in his body? Is he just like a Superman?
Who knows?
Another question I have is, what happened to Spike in that car crash that they have to remove his mind to do surgery? Do they just not have anesthesia?
And also,
those are some long wires going all the way to the hospital, I presume.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be.
They could have like moved him closer or something, but I don't know, man.
is the hard to think aspect of it just bad Wi-Fi, or like? And then why did they let him watch Frankenstein at a time like this? There's just no.
Absolutely zero situational awareness with the movie.
That's so funny, man.
But, like, you mentioned the hard to think part of it.
Yes.
And this kind of brings up the intersection between the Cybertronian human physiology and, like, the ethics behind that.
Right.
Is that there's a case to be made for a human consciousness which runs on a biological nervous system.
Right.
Like, that's electrical impulses being sent to a biological organism to process information and stuff. That's how...
Nerves to the muscles, to the bones, to the ligaments, the veins, and the organs, and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how a human perceives its environment and surroundings, and essentially its whole world.
Yeah.
And self-conception.
Yeah.
We don't really have a good reference for how Cybertronian neurology works.
Yeah.
It's not a one-to-one of, oh yeah, circuitry. It like communicates the same way and stuff.
Right.
We've seen that with especially like Dinobots and stuff. They're able to essentially just augment a nervous system.
Yeah.
And just bring up something from simpleton to slightly less simpleton. And when you apply a consciousness that has only functioned off of one program of responding and perceiving information and plug it into an entirely different operating system, that's genuinely going to mess with the ability to think and process information.
I think it's mostly processing of information and figuring out how to like exist within the body. It's not as extreme as like having a completely different body type than you did, because like, if you woke up in the body of an animal, you'd have to learn how to use 4 legs or a tail or wings or so at least he has the benefit of it still being that humanoid shape. Bipedal. 2 legs, 2 arms.
Yeah.
A head on top of its body. And he doesn't have to deal with transform. I would have loved to have seen it. What happened?
A horrifying transformation.
Transformed. It probably can't because it's just cobbled together. But you're completely right. Completely different sensory inputs. Completely different type of nervous system.
Right. And you can kind of see that too with his whole emotional response on waking up and Sparkplug's immediate reaction is, what have we done to you, man? And but yeah, I always make the comparison that it's like if you put a human being's mind into an ant's. Like, an ant processes most of its world through pheromones and smells. Right. We can, but it's just not as important to us as an ant's is.
Ours function more on sight and touch, and ants are more on smell and vibrations.
Or vice versa. You put an ant's mind into a human's body. We have access to all of this information and stimulus that an ant just doesn't. That's like mental overload, and also an ant is an ant. All it's going to do is think, I got to save the queen. Like, I don't know.
Right. And then the human is going to be practically blinded being put into the ant.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
But this also kind of brings up a cool theme that applies to like the later half of this episode, where it's Autobot X kind of being used as a pawn by Megatron.
Yeah.
And when you have this like weird intersection between the two, he's not quite human, he's not quite Transformer.
Yeah.
And stuff. This is like a battle for the soul of both.
Yeah.
Like, by a human's nature, them being super weak means that they're constantly seeking out ways to avoid death, to get power of some kinds, to overcome death.
Yeah.
Cybertronians have that power, but they're kind of callous to it. They don't really think about it per se. Their idea of power is more on like a galactic scale and stuff, and it makes it difficult for Cybertronian, like in this case, Megatron.
This is normal for them, you know. They, as you say, they're naturally powerful and functionally immortal.
Yes.
So that they you know, the greater powers beyond that, and they miss out on a lot of the empathy for lesser beings.
Because we don't see Spike have like a hunger for power at any point.
Well,
as a human.
Kind of. Oh, as a human.
As a human. The second he gets put into a Cybertronian body, though, it's so hard to think through that perspective, but Megatron is a Cybertronian purist.
Yeah, because he says, like, Spike says, like, you know, should I use my new power for good, or should I use it to cause chaos like Megatron? I'm a monster. You know? I'm not.
Where does he even get this philosophical question from? He's just out in the woods on his own.
Right.
It's like, I don't think as a human he ever really thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, in general. He's probably thinking, you know...
Or maybe because it's harder to think, he's on a more primal level, and this is just something that's hidden down deep, you know?
Yeah.
That he wouldn't normally think about, but because now he's in this weird situation.
Yeah.
You know.
And this is getting into, like, id and ego and stuff like that. That's, like, you know, way too deep for the scope of this.
Autobot id and Decepticon ego.
Yeah. But it makes sense, though. Terracon Impulse.
I don't know.
Monstructor. But it kind of makes sense, though, that Megatron, when he decides, like, he sees that all of this is happening and decides, like, you know, oh, well, I can use this to my advantage.
Yeah.
He starts appealing to that one, you know, oh, the Autobots don't like you, you're a monster, but I like you, and think of all of the power that you could have and stuff. And he's operating on a Cybertronian brain that's limited to essentially base emotional impulses.
Right.
And that's probably why he's a little bit more able to be tempted by power and the concept of it.
Yeah. And I guess it makes sense for him to run away, too, because the Autobots were always trying to hold him down, and Optimus's solution is, again, just shoot him.
The ultimate Autobot solution. Just shoot it.
Yeah. I mean, he is like, be careful, we can't lose Spike. But in the end, he just snipes him.
Yeah.
Right, you know? In the tangle in the base when he first wakes up, I mean.
Right.
And it's interesting that he decides that if I look like a freak, I'm going to do bad things, you know, so...
Yeah, and also, like,
is this an allegory for a crazy teenager phase?
Yeah. Well, he is a teenager.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, he looks up to Optimus, and we see him as, like, the dad figure and stuff. Yeah. Optimus is a paragon, and he's also, like, you know... He looks pretty good.
Yeah.
He looks like a paragon and stuff. And Autobot X does not.
Right.
Like, he's, you know, he's a Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And stuff. So...
Well, he's a Frankenstein's monster.
It makes sense if he's running off of base impulse.
The scientist was the Frankenstein. Sorry, go ahead.
Not according to the movie.
Wait, which movie?
The movie that he's watching.
The movie that he's watching in the episode. Yeah.
But, like, it makes sense that, you know, that's just, like, an impulse that probably wouldn't really affect him, but in this body, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the, what brings him back is, you know, his father's in danger, so that's, like, kind of another sort of primal instinct is the family.
Yeah, but it's a primal human aspect.
Yeah, human aspect. But it's also kind of the bridge between, he uses his ability, he has to reject both sides' faults, and embrace their benefits, because he uses the human empathy to rescue Sparkplug, but he uses the body of the Cybertron, the Cybertron,
the Cybertronian ability.
Yeah, the abilities to rescue him, and it's kind of
something that he couldn't have done as a human.
It's kind of like a metaphor for the Autobots and the humans being allies. Is that the humans teach the Autobots empathy, and the Autobots provide them with technology and protection,
right? And
through their powers.
The line that he says, where he's like I said, I've got powers that I haven't even discovered yet.
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of a cool thematic line for this idea of like, this is an imperfect union.
Yeah.
But imagine what could happen with a perfect union
later
on in life. Mm-hmm. Is that this potential union has powers that haven't even been discovered yet.
Right. And certainly, so it could have went on with him being the Autobot, but I think that ultimately him going back to the human is probably a better choice.
Yeah,
and because that connection needs to be between the two.
It needs to be between two willing participants.
Right, rather than one amalgam sort of thing. Right?
One unwilling amalgamation.
Right. There has to be that dichotomy instead of all the power being in one thing. It has to have that two sides to it.
And we've seen this explored in other avenues, but I'm surprised it doesn't come up as often as it does.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that Autobot X doesn't come up more in like toy lines or anything. I feel like he has like at least one toy somewhere, but you don't see it very often. I feel like it's a good kit bashing opportunity.
Definitely.
But or you remember those action figures? I think they still do it. Where like you buy an action figure and then it comes with like a dismembered
like a head
limb
or a leg.
head or a body or something, and then you buy like 5 action figures and you put this one dude together. Yeah. I feel like that would be a good thing for Autobot X. Like you buy 5 Autobots. And then they each come with. What would be funny is if you bought like Trailbreaker and he came with an extra Trailbreaker leg, and you're like, what the heck is this for?
Yeah.
And then you buy Sideswipe and he comes with an extra Sideswipe arm.
It's like it doesn't make any sense.
And then you put all these extra pieces together, and it makes Autobot X. Yeah. But anyway, there's a wish list, Hasbro.
There we go.
But one more thing I wanted to point out is Megatron, he makes plans before he even has the assets.
Yes.
He's like, hey, we will go and convince Autobot Spike to join us, and then we will take over the Autobots.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, maybe you should like get him on your side first.
Count your chickens count your eggs before they hatch.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
I love that when they get him back and he's like on the Autobot side again, and they're about to plug him back into his human body. Yeah. They set it up to go, and then Wheeljack is like, it's overloading! And then it's like perfectly fine.
Yeah, what is up with that? It's just like, oh, come on. Like, there's nothing that comes of it. But a couple of lighthearted things I wanted to mention is there's a very specific noise for the rocket base. Apparently Teletran 1, it's like having a special ringtone for everybody.
It's like that alarm only means one thing. One specific thing.
Yeah, this specific rocket base, which I assume is pretty close to the Autobots. Somewhere between the Autobot HQ and whatever closest city there is. Which also we finally get to see a city.
Woo!
It's not all canyons and deserts.
Yeah. Civilization.
Ironhide just runs in and gets shot. What are the rockets for?
What are the rockets for?
Also, I love how
because we don't get if it's like are these space rockets or are these
they're just bombing Russia. Like they're just bombing Russia. And Optimus is like, yes.
He also disses them as well.
Yeah, it's funny. He's like. He just sick burns the human rockets to Ironhide, so he's not perfectly, on the human side yet. He's like impressive for primitive technology.
It's like seeing a kid put something on their fridge and it's like, look what we made, and it's that's great. I mean, objectively, it's terrible, but that's great.
And I like how the general or whatever he rushes through the liftoff sequence really fast. He's like, let's get him off the ground before the Decepticons attack again.
It's just like, just send him up.
Also, Bumblebee at the end of this episode foreshadows that season 3 episode where he says, "I wonder what it'd be for an Autobot to be put into a human body," and then
We'll never know.
I have been so mad for 20 years that he's not in that episode.
Yep.
He's not, like, okay, I would get it if he wasn't turned into a human in that episode from season 3 where I think it's Rodimus, Ultramagnus, Springer, and RC get turned into humans by G.I. Joe's own Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
You know? Which, anytime that military shows up in Transformers, I always wonder, G.I. Joe?
Potentially G.I. Joe. Satellite G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Off campus.
Yeah. But yeah, it's why couldn't Bumblebee at least be in that episode? You know? Anyway,
because then that'd just be such a great callback where it's like, oh boy, never again.
right. That would have been a great bit of continuity, but G1's not known for great continuity.
Yeah.
In broad strokes, it has decent continuity, but in little specifics like that.
But yeah, definitely, this episode. It's got a good emotional core, I feel like.
Yes.
Like, good...
This is a solid episode. And it kind of fits into this category. I see Season 2 as 3 different parts. The Season 1.5, where it's continuing the adventures of the Season 1 cast.
Yeah.
The Season 2 characters, where it brings in all the new guys from the 85 line. And then the Combiner Wars portion of it, where they start bringing in the different combiner
like rapid
teams.
weapon escalation.
Right. But this fits snugly into that season 1.5.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's like pretty good animation all overall. Like through the whole episode. I like that
it's still got those season 1-ish designs to them, because later on in season 2, when they get more blocky, I believe season 2 took on a new art director or something like that, character designer or something, and that's why they look different in season 2.
Right.
And I
really do like that this is...
Even though it's still animated by, is it Toei? Toei. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to say about this episode?
I mean, I love the fact that it's one of the first times that we see one of the humans actually get seriously hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it grounds it back into the thing of, like, this is the threat of...
Yeah, they're giant robots that are tumbling around.
This is an active war zone.
Like, yeah. And they're like, 3 or 4 times bigger than you.
Yeah, we constantly see that where it's like, it's too dangerous for you sort of thing. And it just seems like it's a running thing through every Transformers show where it's like, it's too dangerous. And then the human comes along. It's like, what were you thinking? I didn't get hurt, did I? Oh, that's true. You didn't get hurt. All right, I guess you can come along. And stuff like that. It's like... There's serious risk of death and injury along with these guys.
Daniel also gets injured and put into the exosuit and merged with RC.
Yes.
Which is... Number one, I've always thought that was really...
Very bizarre.
Really played weird in that episode, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. But very cool body horror themes and concepts brought up in this one that... definitely aren't played for the horror aspect per se, but more for like the harrowing side. And I definitely want to see more of these sort of questions raised throughout like Transformers as a whole and stuff. And it's kind of a theme that I think goes unspoken, but is pretty cool to look for. Keep an eye out for.
It goes back to that Cybertronian physiology thing. A lot more things are possible with them. And of course, just because, it's a kid's cartoon, you can't, rip and tear the flesh off of a human, but you could tear up an Autobot. You could chop
draw
up
and quarter an Autobot,
which we will get to in another part of this podcast. Not the next episode, but the episode after that in this session of episodes.
Some fun concepts.
Oh yes, indeed. Something I almost forgot. We get a rare Reflector season 2 appearance.
Yes, he pops up like here and there, in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
But he never, speaks.
Yeah. It kind of furthers that season 1.5 feeling to the first third of season 2.
It's a shame, too, because he's a really unique character.
Yeah, three bots in one, that combine into one alt mode.
That may or may not have a shared consciousness.
Yeah.
Of some kind.
Is it one dude or is it 3 dudes that all look the same? Are they triplets or is it like one dude that splits up?
Yeah, is it one dude with 3 personalities?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's confusing. It is also he's a lot of times used as a generic Decepticon.
Right. He does
wise.
get that, yeah. In season 2, there's that guy or season 1, there's that guy they send across the space bridge that's like the 4th reflector.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
He was the Flash of the camera.
Yeah.
Detachable Flash.
Yeah. Have you seen the G1 toys of Reflector? They look nothing like one of them looks like the cartoon version, and then the other 2 look
they're totally different.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So this the discussion of this episode went very long, but I think the other ones will breeze through pretty quickly. But for now, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll discuss changing gears. And we're back. We're going to be changing gears here with the episode Changing Gears.
Yeah.
Actually, we're still kind of in the body horror genre, but...
Yeah, a little bit.
Gears is captured by the Decepticons during a raid on a gold mine, and his special circuit card is used to finish Megatron's Solar Needle, which harvests the sun's raw power. The Autobots have to rescue Gears and stop the process before the sun explodes. The stakes went up.
Yeah, we had a bit of an escalation here.
The first thing my wife said about Gears when we were watching this episode was, why does he look like Humpty Dumpty?
Yes. Gears is honestly one of my favorite Transformers character designs because he looks so much like a robot from the 50s or something
Yeah. Danger Will Robinson.
Yeah.
But Gears just kills it in this episode. His complaining in any other episode is just okay, it's Gears complaining. Whatever.
Yeah.
In this episode, it's actually really funny.
Yes.
A lot of his jokes, his lines land.
Right. A couple notes about the beginning scene with the mine attack.
Yeah.
Seeing the humans genuinely cower in fear at the assault.
Yeah, they're just getting attacked by Decepticons.
They're just randomly getting attacked, and it does kind of bring up the kind of like what we mentioned with Ultimate Doom, where the state of the world where you could just get randomly assaulted by a group of Decepticons and never see them coming, sort of thing.
It's kind of terrifying. Yeah, there is kind of a scariness to the concept that they are robots in disguise and could just show up anywhere.
Yeah, they're huge. They don't really care about you. They kind of have fun messing around with you and putting you in harm's way. So.
And this kind of shows that everyone sort of knows about the Decepticons at this point.
Yeah.
And that the Autobots can just pick up any radio reference to the Decepticons.
Yeah, they're just
call
for help.
Teletran's just constantly scanning the airwaves for Decepticons.
They got a Big Brother thing going on.
Otherwise, this gold mine specifically has a line to the Autobot base.
Yeah. It also sucks that they just found gold and they're like, we're rich, and Decepticons
I always
show
felt
up.
bad for them for that. You know, they probably spent the past 10, 15 years of their lives looking for this stuff.
Yeah.
Something funny that I noticed watching this episode is when the battle begins, Gears just slides down on the cliff on his bum.
Yeah. Cannot be bothered.
Also, the guy who turns into a gun has a gun on his arm, uses another gun to energize the rocks.
Gunception.
Yes. So, what if the Autobots didn't bring Gears to this fight? Does Megatron's plan just completely get ruined here?
He's absolutely counting on them in this one specific instance to bring Gears.
Yeah. Why didn't he send them off to India or wherever again so that he could send Laserbeak into the base to specifically kidnap this one guy?
Oh, there's a great... one of my favorite parts of this episode is that when the Autobots are rushing to... assemble and stuff, and everyone's running down the hallway. Gears is going at a very, very leisurely pace.
Yeah.
Just strolling along. And the fact that he's, like, just a grumpy old man in general.
Right.
But it is, like, Megatron's plan is so hyper-specific that we need this one tiny specific part that is only on Gears to make this solar needle work.
Yeah. What's up with that? So, like, number one, they did not safely eject the USB drive.
Yeah.
Which, it's not a USB. It's a cassette tape.
Yeah. It's a literal 8-track in his chest.
Yeah. But Gears' complaining circuit makes the solar needle work. What does it actually do, and why does it make him so grumpy? Is this his power chip rectifier? Is it his infrared powers? His compressed air? Now, I had to look this up. I have, and I'm going to start using this more often now.
Yes. The Tome.
The Tome, yes. Transformers Universe was a series of profile books that Marvel Comics put out in the 80s. And I figure that it has pretty much the closest to the original ideas and profiles and power listings for each of the Transformer characters that we're going to have, or at least that I have in my possession besides TF Wiki.
Yeah.
But, TF Wiki just tries to summarize things, so this is getting more into the specifics. This is probably closest to what was written on the back of the box.
Yeah, this is
right?
a pretty good guesstimate of, like, at the time, canonical explanations.
And I have the reprint that IDW did a while back when they reprinted the Transformer Classics volumes. So I went to Gears' profile. It says his allegiance is Autobot, functions, transport and reconnaissance. First appearance, Transformers issue number 1. Or, in the cartoon, it'd be More Than Meets the Eye.
Yeah.
His quote is, "Earth stinks, but Decepticons stink worse." Profile. Gears is the and this is interesting. Gears is the complainer in the group. He absolutely hates the Earth and everything about it, and he is eager to let the others know this. He is a self-proclaimed misfit, the type who finds fault in everything and everyone, even himself. That is one of the reasons Optimus Prime finds him useful. Gears is so sour-tempered that the rest of the Autobots cheer themselves up by trying to cheer him up. Only Optimus knows that Gears' complaining is an act. Gears realizes his function is to force his companions to see what's good about situations, and he performs accordingly. Now, this
Wild.
yeah, that is an interesting look into his character. But this is what I wanted to get at. Abilities. Gears has tremendous strength and endurance. Okay, we've seen that in previous episodes. He is often used to tote heavy loads for long distances. He will even carry several of his comrades to conserve fuel. He can launch himself to a height of 20 miles and then float back down to the ground by creating a compressed air cushion under his feet. Whoa, he got rocket boots, man.
I just see it like a battle royale game where you get sent back up into the air and then just like gliding down.
This makes him an excellent reconnaissance agent, and his ability to detect infrared wavelengths allows him to work night or day, which we've seen his infrared powers in I think it's one of the More Than Meets the Eye episodes where he finds Ravage, right?
Yes.
And then also his incredible his ability to jump buildings in a single bound. There's a little Superman reference for you. I think he did that in SOS Dinobots, actually, where he jumps up to fight one of the Decepticons in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
Weaknesses. Since Gears has limited maneuverability when launched, he makes an easy target if spotted. Although his sour personality is mostly an act, a reminder of his home planet, Cybertron, can often depress him and negatively affect his performance. Oh, poor guy.
He's a sad dude.
Yeah. But anyway, so the main thing was I wanted to know if he had any hidden powers that we haven't seen in the cartoon that might possibly mean that this chip, being maybe his power chip rectifier, could allow this solar needle function, and the only thing that I could come up with is something to do with the infrared.
Or infrared or compressed air.
Right.
I don't know what.
And like maybe the infrared ability allows it to detect where the sun is,
Yeah.
or the best part in the sun to suck energy from, or something like that. Or the compressed air is what compresses the energy into energon cubes. What?
That was the missing ingredient, air. I had a couple theories about it.
Okay,
That-
you've got some interesting things.
Yeah, that
Go ahead.
his like he's when he's walking down the corridor, he's slow. You see Ironhide pass by him, and Ironhide is generally the old man of the group.
Yeah.
And-
before Cup.
So him just being like all grumpy and stuff, and being slower than him, and also that he's the only Autobot with the necessary part, it makes me think that he's like the oldest model of them, and that like he's not really the last of his kind, but he's just so old that this part that they need wasn't in production by the time all the other Autobots were created.
Right.
Which kind of fits for his character design, where he's all blocky and stocky and chunky.
So it's not so in your theory, it's not so much a specific power that Gears has, but a specific part, a special circuit card that
He's just
allows.
outmoded.
Yeah, well, but that they need a specific function to compute or something. Because he puts it into like the main computer on this solar.
And then all of a sudden it works.
Right. So maybe it's his infrared power. Maybe they just need this special type of circuit that it is no longer in production.
Yeah, they say it's somehow it affects his personality components.
Yeah.
And that's why he becomes so happy afterwards.
Yeah.
And why is it that when this part is taken out, he's all of a sudden like, wee, you know.
So is the solar needle just really grumpy?
If the solar needle had a personality.
The secret, you know how they say, like, you know, like Uncle Iroh, they ask him, what's the secret ingredient to making your tea so well? And he says, the secret ingredient is love. In this situation, what's the secret ingredient to the solar needle? Complaining.
Yes. A bad attitude.
A bad attitude.
It is also just hilarious the fact that he's not even mind controlled at all.
Yeah. He's basically just been lobotomized.
Not even lobotomized. He's just like so happy that he can't be bothered.
Yeah. He says
he specifically says like, I
asked
wish
him
I
to
could hate you for this, but I'm just too happy right now.
Right.
Though I'm not sure why. But like he's not being mind controlled. Nothing's altered his brain. It's just that he cannot be bothered.
Yeah.
In a good way. Previously, it would be, I cannot be bothered because I'm too fed up.
Right.
But now it's, I cannot be bothered because I'm too gleeful.
Yeah.
So, maybe this piece of technology is like a mod that he put on himself from eons ago that... Like, maybe he was a people pleaser or a pushover.
Yeah.
And he was just like, this is who he is normally.
Yeah.
And then when you add that component to him, he becomes, like, all grumpy and stuff so that he could actually stand up for himself.
Oh, my goodness. That's brilliant. Yeah, and that would be why none of the other Transformers have that. Is because he specifically made it for himself.
Who knows?
Oh, my goodness. That's hilarious. But yeah, the solar needle takes the sun's energy directly. Is this like space bridge technology?
Well, it is
like,
pointed straight at the sun.
Yeah, it is a line of sight sort of thing, but like, you know, is this the beam that they use in the space bridge? Did Megatron just say, if I can bring things through the space bridge, maybe I can just bring energy from the sun to the Earth? Also, this probably helped inspire Revenge of the Fallen.
Yeah, with the sun
movie,
harvester
the
in the
sun
middle of
harvester and all
the
that,
pyramids
yeah.
of Giza.
Oh, and Starscream's null ray actually freezes gears, like the machine. It freezes the machines in season 1.
Yeah.
But I find it hilarious.
The null ray is one of the most consistent pieces of technology in the entirety of G1.
Yeah, generally they're pretty good at sticking to the powers. That's why I wanted to use Transformers Universe, the profile books, as a guide to help us understand their powers in these episodes. But I find it hilarious that the Solar Needle only makes 1 cube at a time.
Yeah.
Wow, you did not plan for efficiency at all. How are you going to get enough energy to revitalize Cybertron before the sun explodes?
I like to think that it's because Starscream worked on it, and we've seen that Starscream's plans for energy production are not the most quantity focused.
You're referencing Dr. Arkaville's brain.
Yes. It's like, it's not even enough to fill 1 cube.
Also, the Earth will explode, or the sun will explode in 2 hours. Let's drive to the center of Africa from the northern United States.
We can make it.
Western.
We'll just use those jet skis from the Ultimate Doom.
But I like how Jazz and Sunstreaker have to ride on Optimus to shoot the trees instead of just using, like, headlight lasers or something.
Yeah, it's a teamwork aspect to it.
And then Wheeljack rescues Bumblebee again, kind of like in episode 1 when they're on Cybertron. And at the very beginning of the episode.
A lot of people forget that was the pairing.
Yeah, that was the very first Transformers we saw. Was
like
Wheeljack
they were just on a
Bumblebee.
mission, but those are the first 2 Transformers we ever see. Wheeljack is the first Transformer we ever see on screen.
Right.
Like, that's gotta count for something.
Right.
During this whole battle,
When they go to rescue Gears.
yeah, they go to get Gears, and there's a big
the
fight between everyone. There's these electrical pylons in between everything with the Sun Harvester. Like, if you hit the electricity, then you get zapped, and
Right.
It's like
Kind of the Tesla coils.
it's Attack of the Clones, where he says, "Anakin, how many times have I told you to stay away from power couplings?" But they're trying to figure out, like, time's running out, and they're trying to decide, what are we gonna do? Like, let's do this, let's do that, and then it just immediately Cliffjumper goes to drive straight into the machine.
Yeah, and
Zero
he jumps off a
hesitation
cliff.
into it. Yeah.
Cliffjumper actually jumped off a cliff.
He just
But yeah, noble sacrifice to end the arguing. It's kind of great. I guess what his plan is he's just getting in between the energy input and the hole above the solar needle to block the ray of energy so that the shield short circuits, which we never really see the shield. And it's too bad he gets zapped by the wrong laser beam in the animation.
Yeah.
So it just really doesn't make any sense.
It's like this noble sacrifice, but like, it feels like you could see him driving off of the cliff, and then There Goes My Hero by Foo Fighters start playing.
We need to make that edit now.
Oh yeah.
But this whole battle, the movement choreography makes no sense. It's all over the place. They're here, then they're over here, then they're up there on top of the thing, then they're down on the ground, then they're back up on top of the thing, and it's just kind of crazy. People come out of the bushes, and then they're back in the bushes, and then they jump over the energy, and then they go under it.
Yeah.
And it's just
I think it's like there's a clear geography to this battle with, like, the way that the Sun Harvester is set up. There's like a little clearing. There's the big needle, and then there's a bunch of pylons around it.
Yeah, the Tesla coils.
But because it's so specific, it means that you actually have a good mental picture of where people are instead of, generic desert canyon.
Yeah.
Insert rock here. So team map painting was probably not in line with team animation.
yeah. That's true. Background art, this and the.
Yeah. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I also think it's funny that rescue Gears was the first priority, then it's save the sun, forget Gears.
Yes. It's like, oh no, we didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah. One thing, whenever anybody in a show or a movie or whatever mentions a specific time limit to a thing that needs to happen, the bomb will go off in 1 minute or something.
Yeah.
I always like to time it to see if it's actually that amount of time.
Right.
This episode actually gets it right.
That's
they
so
said
cool.
that the sun will explode in less than a minute, and it is actually less than a minute for them to reverse the flow and bypass the memory circuit. that looks like Dr. Arkaville's exponential generator thing.
Ooh.
Interesting little thing there, like the little glowing egg thing. It looks like his exponential generator, so that might be part of the like Megatron stole or Starscream stole the plans for that to work it into this contraption.
I'd like to
neat little bit of continuity.
Yeah, I'd like to keep an eye on that, like where human technology that was influenced by Cybertronian technology and Cybertronian technology that was influenced by human technology. Like, there's a little bit of overlap and stuff, and just being able to see more of that, where I am fully willing to believe that Dr. Arkaville was the most genius-level intellect to have ever come out of the human race, and that even Cybertronians are learning from his technology.
Yeah. But big props to this episode for actually having that timed out right.
Yes.
Also, apparently Optimus trusts Wheeljack more than Ratchet.
Yeah, it's
because he goes with pulling Ratchet. That wire.
They're like bickering over which wire to pull, and then Optimus is just like, get out of the way, and he pulls Wheeljack's wire.
Yeah, I guess he likes Wheeljack more than Ratchet in the cartoon, and then he likes Ratchet more than everybody in the comics.
He doesn't just like Ratchet more in the comics, he laments Ratchet. As Shakespearean soliloquies about that man.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, it's kind of creepy that the Autobots just vote to leave Gears' lobotomy as is.
It's not just like one person making a one-handed joke. They're like, Prime, we've been thinking.
Yeah. And Prime just goes along with it. It's like, well, if that's the way you feel.
Yeah.
But it is pretty funny.
And I love his, like, you know, he is still the same person. It's just this, like, layer of happiness where he's like, hey, guys, I'd really like my personality back. This would be great.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get really mad.
And then they just leave him in the jungle as he's complaining some more.
Yeah. Honestly, I love the end of this episode, and just kind of, like, there's a lot of season 2 that ends with the... You know, the hearty har ending.
Yeah, the laughing ending where somebody makes a joke and everybody
and
laughs.
Sometimes it can get kind of annoying, but this one is like actually
this one
really
does
charming.
It pretty good, yeah. Well, they don't really laugh that much. That's more of just they just kind of roll their eyes, smile, and drive off. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, all in all,
great episode.
Really good episode.
Even if the fight choreography or the battlefield tactics are a little out of whack here.
Yeah.
But the
Gears
fun episode.
Gears is a great character.
A lot to contemplate on why is Gears so special.
Yeah.
Gears is just a killer character. He's great. And probably pretty influential on Transformers, at least.
Yeah, this episode, oddly enough, had a pretty far-reaching influence based off of the Revenge of the Fallen.
Yeah. And with that, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about City of Steel. And welcome back, everybody. We're talking about City of Steel this time.
City of Steel? Who's this British guy in the office with the...
Yes, I am the executive producer of ACOM, and we will be taking over...
I'll kill you!
Yeah.
What did you do to season 3?
Oh, this is.
We have a new recurring character on the pod. It's ACOM CEO. Listen, it's fine. It's fine. ACOM's fine.
We're burning up in this room, and I'm just losing my mind over Aiden threatening to kill me.
I'll kill you.
A British ACOM. I'm pretty sure
ACOM's Korean. Like.
Well, I believe they're owned by like an American. Okay. All right. We'll address this now. Some episodes of most of the animation in Transformers Season 1 and 2 is done by Toei in conjunction with Sunbow and Hasbro and Marvel and blah, 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 blah. Some episodes were outsourced. The work and animation was done by other companies. There's a couple of ones here and there that did just one episode or just helped on episodes, but ACOM is pretty infamous for being a company that did several episodes. According to TF Wiki, they did 22 episodes of Generation 1. Most of those are in Season 3, but there are at least 3 episodes in Season 2. Most of them have to do with the Constructicons for some reason.
Yeah, that's the weird recurring thread between all of them.
And their art style is vastly different than the rest of Season 1 and 2.
The weird thing is that it makes me think of, like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Like, just off of the animation principles and, like, the way that they move. It's fluid, for sure. But the art style, it's, like, mushy. I don't really have a better way to describe
they have a softer edge, and oftentimes the colorization on a lot of characters is very different.
Yeah.
I don't actually hate this art style.
It's not bad.
I think it's interesting to see kind of a different art style. Sometimes their animation is pretty lackluster, you know, and
everything's kind of floaty.
In this episode particularly, there's a lot of really weird shot choices, the way that they set up the shots. And then while the animation can be very smooth, sometimes it feels very light and
like weightless.
Weightless, yeah, that's a good word for it. People just kind of bounce around and just kind of move across the screen sometimes. So they also once in a while do that sort of that SpongeBob detail shot. You know? They do that once in a while too, which I think is actually something that should show up in 2D Transformer shows more often.
Detail shot,
just because it's just kind of funny, you know. But anyway, it kind
for
of
all of its benefits. Man, do they mess up a lot.
Yeah, characters look weird sometimes, and they, Transformers is pretty infamous for its animation errors anyway, but there's a lot of animation errors in ACOM episodes and miscolorizations and, you know, all kinds of stuff.
Once again, TF Wiki has a comprehensive list of all of the animation errors for every episode. But every ACOM episode, it's usually started out with, look, this is an ACOM episode. There's going to be a lot.
Which... the softer art palette, the color palette that they use for these and more rounded character designs, like we're talking, I say Season 1 is a little more rounded compared to Season 2's more blocky look, but ACOM is like really... I mean, you call it mushy, you know?
Blubby.
But it kind of reminds me of that, like, old 30s Superman cartoon, but that was like an animation masterpiece for a, episodic cartoon. But, like, it kind of reminds me of that, but anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe we should do our...
this is the
synopsis.
episode City of Steel.
Yeah.
By the way. Megatron takes over New York, baby, and the Constructicons rebuild it into new Cybertron. The Autobots attempt to stop them, but Optimus is captured and torn apart and rebuilt into an alligator. The Autobots eventually rescue him and fight off the Decepticons, even when Devastator goes full King Kong mode.
Oh, also, I think this was the second episode we ever saw, though I can't remember if we finished it while we were there. I don't think we actually did, so we were left on a cliffhanger for years until I started watching these on Hasbro's website.
It's like, what's gonna happen to King Kong Devastator?
What's gonna happen to Optimus? Did they put it back together? But yeah, so this and Autobot Spike were like the first episodes that we ever watched.
Yeah.
What a pairing. And then later we rented a VHS with a bunch of Dinobot episodes and the 80s movie from Blockbuster when we got home.
That was how the journey began.
Yeah. And then Energon was happening at the same time, so we started, our toy collecting with that.
Yeah.
And
it was weird because we only had like one
too.
DVD of like 5 episodes from Energon.
Yeah,
we just rewatched those a bunch.
Right. Well, we watched some of the episodes on, chopped up on Hasbro's old website, which I cannot remember the name of that, but it was like you could watch G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Transformers, Care Bears.
It was just Hasbro.com, wasn't it?
It was like a sub-site,
Like a kid's site, wasn't it?
Well, There's like Hasbro.com, and then there was like HasbroWatchTheseVideos.com, and then there was like HasbroTransformers.com, Hasbro's GI Joe.com, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like each of them had their own website, but you could get to each website from each other.
Right.
Like you'd be on the
They were
Transformer.
all connected.
You could be on the Transformer one, and you could go to the GI Joe one from there, or to the Watch Stuff website from there, or whatever. But then we really started getting into Cybertron. That was really...
Cybertron was where we actually were like following along each episode as it aired. But
we won't get to those episodes for many years. Right now we're on City of Steel.
Yes.
Let's actually talk about this episode.
So, weirdly enough, despite... this is a weird episode. But
this is a fever dream of an episode, and I loved it because I was sick when I watched this episode, so it was even more just out there for me.
This weirdly enough has an insane amount of outside influence on like future Transformers installments and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just the coincidence of the Decepticons taking over a city. Or if it's specifically, because the game Transformers Devastation has a very similar plot to this.
The campaign of Transformers Devastation is basically the same thing, just on a bigger scale.
Yeah. With more things.
Even with, like, the purple Cybertronian structures overtaking, like, the human man-made structures.
Right.
Digging up the city and everything.
That one's definitely... closely tied to this episode.
There's a All Hail Megatron run in IDW that has a pretty memorable scene where Soundwave sends Frenzy into a pack of military units that corner him in Central Park.
Yeah.
And in this episode, there's a scene where Soundwave
sends Rumble and Frenzy
in Central Park. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and then... just the whole takeover of, is it Chicago in Dark of the Moon?
Yes, I believe
just
it's
basically
Chicago.
any time that the Decepticons take over a city, you could probably say, hey, that's just like that episode.
Yeah, you can point to this one as being, well, it's also the first time that we've seen a named city.
You are right. It is the first time. New York. Otherwise...
What better place?
Yeah. Otherwise, up to this point, it's all been deserts and unnamed cities.
Yeah. Vague human populated areas.
So, if this was a few years later, do you think they would have met the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the sewers?
Oh, absolutely. Especially given the Alligator Con.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. They also play on like some New York tropes about the taxis. The Decepticons build those taxis into...
Those taxis are wild.
Yeah, they got guns on them and stuff. And it makes me wonder, is that like the... in that later episode where they're manufacturing the cars, where they're running the car racket and they're turning them into like Decepticon drones. Do these taxis transform, or are they just remote control cars
we see
guns?
it a few times where they make technology specifically to overrun human tech. It's not necessarily just like they're alive. They're just kind of like puppeteering stuff.
Yeah. And then there's the alligator in the sewer. I'm surprised we didn't get any pizza in this episode.
Yeah.
When Bumblebee drives away with a I Heart New York bumper
this
sticker
whole
at the end of
episode
it.
is severely dedicated to letting you know that they are in New York, baby.
Yeah. But clearly 80s New York because the World Trade Center is still there.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant they take some time to show the two towers and it's like oof.
I think it's kind of funny that the Decepticons just have a base under New York that they can sink entire buildings into.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're they don't really have a energy goal in this one. It's not like we're going to take over New York so we can access the electrical grid. Or something.
the untapped potential energies of the Empire State Building.
Yeah,
we're going to use it as a giant lightning rod. No, it's just about taking over territory, which is something new we haven't seen.
Yeah, they're planting their flag on human territory, and it's New York. It's the city that always gets conquered first in whatever piece of fiction there is.
I feel like this kind of hurts his case in Megatron's master plan, though.
That's true.
Maybe this episode should have come after that one.
Where he wins the popular vote, and then there's that one guy who's like, you did destroy a lot of stuff in New York.
Yeah. but also the Decepticons use the human number 5 in their base.
Yeah, just big old regular number 5. But it is, it's cool seeing that, you know, we've established that Megatron is a Cybertronian purist, and that his first move when he takes over a human settlement is to make it look like Cybertron. One, as like just a statement that we're better than you. But two, there's a line from, I think it's Starscream, where he's like, I gotta give it to him. He really does make it look like home. And
Megatron calls it the reborn city of New Cybertron. So, number one, does that imply that there's a city on Cybertron called Cybertron?
Yeah.
Number two, I think that Megatron is just really homesick in this episode. You know, it's something that I've brought up in the past, is that Megatron is very loyal to Cybertron. You know, I mean, we've talked about he's like a nationalist. You know, extremist. You know, over the top. You know, we're better than you sort of bad guy. You know, but at the same time, Megatron really is just trying to help his home in some of these episodes. He's very concerned about getting energy to Cybertron in some of the episodes.
You even see it
specifically in season 1, but you know.
Right. You even see that in the Devastation campaign where he says, and we've mentioned it before, but he says the line, Cybertron's at the center of my universe. How is it not at the heart of yours, Optimus?
Yeah.
And and you even see that in like other Cybertronians as well, like Mirage is very homesick, and I don't know, I think it's a cool
it's a nice cool theme detail to pay attention to,
right? And it occasionally comes up, but it is very cool.
We get the return of the water skis, hydrofoil things from Ultimate Doom.
I thought they were gone forever, but they're back.
They actually show up in several episodes. It's pretty neat. And Scavenger Sniffer makes a return from Heavy Metal War.
I don't know what it is about that, but I just think it's very endearing. That he has a literal snooper.
A Snoop Scoop.
A Snoop Scoop. The Scoop Snoops.
Okay, so this was what we were talking about with ACOM's animation being weird, is when Ironhide falls over while Rumble and Frenzy are pile driving the ground, you know? It's such a funny animation where he's just this slow, like,
it makes it look like
he just goes stiff and then just falls over. It's so funny.
It kind of looks like he's kaiju size and falling down super slow because he's huge, but no, it's just really wonky animation on that.
So Optimus gets captured by the Decepticons, and Hook chops him up and uses his body parts for things. And apparently Optimus can just remote control his body.
Yeah, okay. Optimus's biology. He has a head that, one, can function on its own. Two, can psychically control all of the other body parts. And not just in like, you know, I can make my toes move on the thing and then they can like inch their way because of that. No, like he calls his legs from the other room and they just come tumbling.
It's so funny.
And
then they were like being used as pillars or something.
And then later on they're like hunting down.
So did that building fall down when those pillars got yanked out from under them?
Just a whole like superstructure, a huge skyscraper just because the legs are gone.
It's definitely more on the robot side of things than the creature side of things, you know.
But like they're hunting down his body parts and stuff, and they find his arm using his gun on top of a tower, and they're like, we gotta get the arm and stuff, and it's like, just why didn't they just use the gun instead of keeping the arm that's attached to it? It's not like Megatron's gun where it's on his arm. He just holds the gun.
Is it Scrapper that he's like, I'll just put the whole arm on top of the tower holding the gun, and that'll be our main gun emplacement on the top of the tower. But him being a head reminds me of the Marvel comics where Shockwave reduces him to being just a head.
That is pretty cool. Like,
did you see those new toys where it's like Shockwave and Grimlock in the Marvel Comics style, and the Shockwave toy comes with that detached Optimus head?
No, I don't think so.
It's pretty cool.
That is pretty neat.
Yeah, they got a specific paint job that makes them look Marvel Comics.
Like cel-shaded sort of look. That's cool.
But anyway, I think Optimus's biology, being that he's broken into pieces and can still control it, kind of ties in with what we'll discuss when we talk about the next episode, dealing with Roller and the command deck.
That's true. But yeah, they're nowhere to be seen in this episode.
Right. Well, no, the trailer does show up when he transforms later.
Yeah.
But
I
just love the absurdity of using Prime's legs for pillars.
Yeah.
And then the body, reformatting it into the body of the alligator, and there's some spare parts left over when they put him back together.
Yeah.
Like, where did they get all these other alligator parts? And then sticking his arm as the turret, and that they all just fly back to him and call. But again, I have to bring this up, this continuity issue, and I know this came out way before the movie, and that, they probably weren't talking about this, or that
it was in production. It wasn't. The teams were probably not connected with each other.
But where is the Matrix?
We need it.
Did Scrapper and Hook not find the Matrix when they were recreating Optimus Prime as the Alligator Con, as they call it, or the Alligator Con, the Reptilicon, or as my wife calls it, Croctimus Prime. Croctimus Prime.
Croctimus Prime.
It's so good.
It's
my wife is a genius at making jokes at Transformers' expense.
They kind of bring it on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. It's just so wild because it's like, what is Hook even on?
Yeah. What were they on when they made this?
What are you on about?
Yeah. But I'm so surprised that they've never made a official Optimus Prime crocodile toy.
It speaks for itself.
Like you could just repaint Headmaster's crocodile guy. What's his name? Skull Cruncher. Skull Cruncher. You could repaint Skull Cruncher and give him the Optimus Prime Headmaster.
Exactly.
There you go. There's Croctimus Prime.
It's printing money. Hasbro.
Come on, Hasbro. Another toy. Come on, please.
Give it to us.
You need to hire me so I can give you good ideas.
There you go.
And they're so simple ideas too. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
Another New York.
Are they in New York in The Godfather? I just watched that the other day.
I don't know. I'll just assume.
I can't remember if they ever say where they're at in The Godfather.
Duh City.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. It's just so funny that he makes it into an alligator just so we can solely have the alligators in the sewers thing.
And it's so funny, like, just chasing them onto the subway, and they're like, let's get rid of this guy by just sending him to the other side of New York on a train.
Yeah.
Speaking of trains, Frenzy driving the train is just so funny looking to me. Yes. The face he makes.
He's
and
so
then
happy.
when it crashes, and the animation on him just getting yeeted. Just fly out of that train. It's so funny.
I don't know, just the alligator as well, like how long it takes for them to figure it out. Because it's the exact same color scheme as Optimus.
You can even see his pectoral windows on the sides of it.
There's like, who could this possibly be?
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't think I'd recognize any friend of mine if they got horribly reconstructed into an alligator.
Yeah, so. This is the body horror stuff we were talking about.
It's a terrifying concept.
Yeah, this is like,
goofs.
like Human Centipede or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
gosh.
Where they just rebuild this guy into an alligator, in this episode.
But going off the rails on a frenzy train.
Yes. And then Starscream's silly plan is like, we're gonna airstrike these guys, and they just slam into the tower.
Yeah. Well, it's the Constructicons form Devastator.
Yeah.
And then they start doing a big King Kong.
Yeah.
And Wheeljack is making sure that that he's doing a big King Kong.
Yeah, he's like, I saw this in a movie. It's called King Kong. And then he sends up remote-controlled helicopters.
Yeah.
Those are probably just machines, but the Decepticabs are also here. And I wonder if those are like Viacons that turn into
I don't know what
taxis.
They make battle taxis.
Yeah.
And then they have random street turret emplacements for whatever reason that Optimus just rams through. They don't do anything. Shenanigans ensue.
Oh, yeah.
Ceaseless shenanigans. But, like, I don't know, just the Seekers seeing Optimus and the other Autobots, like, rappelling their way up the tower to get the thing. And the Seekers are like, we've got this. And just plow through the tower and not even are like hit the tower and then like transform and crawl away and they're like damaged and it's like, oh, we need repairs. It's like they just go straight through, are flying steady and like, oh man, we really messed up.
Oh, and then Devastator, while he's climbing the tower with Optimus in his hand, like the girl in King Kong, I can't remember her name. King Kong's a good movie, but I can't remember the girl's name. Is it Jane?
No, that's Tarzan.
No, that's Tarzan, isn't it? Anyway, so he just, like, slaps Ironhide and Ratchet with Optimus. It sends them tumbling into the room, and then they hear Megatron shouting at Spike and Bumblebee, who have snuck into the command center, which also we get a rare Buzzsaw appearance in this episode.
You know, whenever he shows up, it's always kind of neat to point it out and be like, hey, it's Buzzsaw.
It's Buzzsaw. He always shows up, like, once or twice.
Yeah, he probably has like a total of like 5 episode appearances or something.
He's literally yellow Laserbeak.
Right. But it's funny because his toy came with the original Soundwave, but Laserbeak kind of eclipsed him in popularity.
Yeah. Rightfully so. I don't know. Laserbeak, when you really break down the name, is kind of a really funny name.
Yeah, it is a really goofy
because
name.
It has nothing to do with his character.
Right.
Like, he just
he has
a beak.
and he shoots lasers, but he doesn't shoot lasers out of his beak.
That's what I'm saying. Whereas Buzzsaw, I don't know, did Buzzsaws use any Buzzsaws this episode?
So, according to, like, his profile and stuff, it's more about, like, he can spin like a buzzsaw like Sonic does, you know? Or that his beak is like razor sharp like a buzzsaw or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Or maybe his wingtips have buzzsaws or something. I don't know. But no, in the cartoon, he never uses any buzzsaw abilities.
He's a sharp fellow.
Yeah. Sharp-dressed man.
But yeah, so then Ironhide and Ratchet shoot the floor under Megatron. Him and Soundwave fall down and then smash through the floor and fall down into the next level of the tower. And I just cracked up at that. That was so funny.
This whole episode is just shenanigans.
It's just shenanigans and just off the wall nonsense. And then when the Decepticons leave because Optimus mind controls his arm to shoot Devastator and he falls through the floor and flies away as all the Constructicons.
It's so funny.
And then there's a symbol flip and the whole city is cleaned up.
Perfectly fine.
And
Empire State Building, completely normal now.
And then the Autobots are like, well, now that we got New York back to normal, we can go home. It's like, yeah, sure. It's just that easy to restore this like 50-year-old buildings.
Infrastructure was critically altered.
In one logo flip.
This is a reconstruction that would take years at the very least.
This episode is goofy and unhinged.
That's a good summary of City of Steel as a whole.
Yeah. That's your summary. I'm sorry, I read your note.
I mean, it is. It's goofy and unhinged.
Yeah. I like this episode.
That's why I love it.
This is probably the best ACOM episode.
Yeah.
Like we get some ACOM episodes that give you some deep lore in season 3 and stuff, but of the season 2 stuff, this is the best ACOM.
Look, if you're going to give us deep lore, you have to make it look appealing. ACOM animation just doesn't really look appealing.
I don't mind ACOM.
It's a preference.
You know?
It's a preference.
I understand it's not as good as Toei, you know, but I can get past it.
Yeah.
And this episode is just peak.
Like, if you want to put on a Saturday morning cartoon that lives up to that title of Saturday morning cartoon, this is the one to do it with.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
That's goofy and unhinged. That's about it.
And with that, we will take a goofy and unhinged break.
Indeed.
And we're back with Attack of the Autobots.
Yes.
Is it your turn or my turn to read the synopsis?
Hold on.
It's my turn.
Now it is you.
The Autobots are reprogrammed for evil when Megatron slips a personality destabilizer into their recharge bay. They wreck human military jets and chase Dr. Harding while Megatron plans to use a solar satellite for infinite power. Jazz, Sparkplug, Bumblebee, and Spike find a way to reverse the evil effect on their friends, allowing Optimus and Ratchet to rescue the satellite from the Decepticons.
Yeah. So, this one starts out with a pretty cool gizmo that the Decepticons have, that it's invisibility spray.
All I can think of is that SpongeBob episode where they spray, they got like a spray paint can and they make each other invisible.
Yeah.
SpongeBob, why are your clothes invisible?
Yeah.
That's like the line I use to get into the Patrick voice.
It's a perfect one.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they just have this on hand. There's not any build up to this. It's an ability that rivals Mirage's.
Yeah.
And they just have it.
yeah. But it's just Mirage being able to do it on his own with that like laser box that pops up. They have to use a spray paint can to spray each other invisible.
But it is pretty cool.
I like the effect where they got like the little glowing lines around them and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, can Teletrans see them? Because like he like catches them on videotape.
Yeah,
Later. It's kind of.
It's the weird effect of that they use the we'll just use the previous shot in the episode for security cam footage thing.
Yeah. That's always bugged me in movies where they just reuse a shot for, footage. And it's like, no, there's no security camera at that angle, in that position, in that place. Why would they
Doing
have
those dynamic camera sweeps?
Why is that camera position? Like, what? Who puts the security camera in a close-up shot or something? You're supposed to put it up in the corner of the room so it can scan the entire room from this angle, right? Why? Anyway, fortunately for them, I think that this angle does actually show up as a security camera angle.
I think it's like the top-down sort of angle.
Yeah, it just kind of turns out good for them in this episode.
Yeah, but I like
normally in other movies, whenever that happens, I'm like, why?
Yeah, I like that there's when they spray each other, and it's the same like orange glow line effect that Mirage has.
Yeah.
Except it's just their line work.
Right.
And they're see-through, but they're glowing lines of their character model, whereas Mirage is like a full-on box.
Yeah, and then he's completely invisible.
Yeah, it's the difference between the power chip rectifier giving you invisibility versus
and then this
tech.
temporary, this probably wears off after a while too.
Yeah. Plus, there's also a really detailed shot of Starscream's innards.
Oh, yeah.
When he pops it open, it was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of a neat detail that when he opens the cabin, the inside did not get sprayed, so it's not invisible.
Yeah. This also introduces a interesting element to, it's always the war for energy and power.
Yeah.
But this actually shows them recharging.
Yeah. It introduces the Autobot recharge bay,
which we never see again. But
yeah. But I wonder if these like coffin type things that they sit in to recharge is more effective than like just plugging in or absorbing energy from like energon cubes or something. Like, of course, we've discussed before, and we'll discuss in future episodes about like where the Autobots get their power from and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as like recharging in these like coffin type things, that I just think that we see like in later episodes where Transformers like plug themselves into things to charge up, or like obviously there's the energon cubes, and then there's that one episode where they're drinking the energon cubes, but like maybe they plug the energon cubes into something that goes into these recharge bay things.
It implies that they have a pretty consistent supply of energy.
Yeah.
At this point, so probably from their alliance with humanity.
Right. And we've talked about like the hydroelectric dam or the facility and the magnetic field or the Earth's magnetic core facility or whatever it was, and in the future we'll talk about the world energy chip and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, but when Teletran like detects an evil presence, and then he's like talking to Megatron. Is this like a metaphorical thing for like what's going on inside the computer's head? And like Megatron's voice is like a metaphor for the program that he installed in there with the personality destabilizer, or is it literally Megatron has with the personality destabilizer planted in the machine, he also put a radio in there because he's that arrogant and gloaty that he's just gonna talk to Teletran from the machine.
It's very, very funny that he has this like philosophical debate with, not even really debate, just Teletran remarks that evil will never triumph, the Autobots are good.
Yeah. But we kind of talked about, like, Teletran sort of has a personality in this scene. Like, he's more than just a computer in this part.
Right.
You know?
And it's interesting that he's always been portrayed as, like, just a computer.
Yeah.
Even though he has, like, artificial intelligence.
Right.
He's just a computer.
They also kind of sympathize. And poor Teletran once again gets destroyed in this episode. We need like a kill count on Teletran. How many times he's been destroyed.
Teletran is the punching bag of the show. But Megatron has a personality destabilizer.
Yeah. So it's not like mind control, but it makes them do bad things. Like,
yeah, they like still have their personality and faculties to them. It's just that they're committed to inflicting violence and enjoying it.
Yeah. I think that the name says it all. It's a personality destabilizer. It sort of like causes them to like, you know, say with like being machines, maybe they're programmed to have like a higher, or as they learn, you know, machine learning or whatever. Yeah. And of course, you know, they are sentient, as Megatron puts it in Autobot Spike, sentient beings. You know, they build up their personality over time to focus more on like good, you know, because Teletran seems to have a quantifiable
good or evil.
Good or evil, you know, factor here. So like probably like their personality starts out pretty neutral and then they just build up the
well,
good.
It's nature versus nurture.
That's kind of a thing, because you know, like in the Five Faces of Darkness, they talk about the Autobots being built to be like kind of servants and the Decepticons being built to be like warriors and stuff. So that's part of their nature, but then also over time they nurture, you know, more
your origin,
more good personality traits, and then the Decepticons nurture more negative personality traits, and then this destabilizer switches that balance where, like, you know, say they have these sliders inside their personalities of, you know, the Autobots are sliding them up to good, and not all of them are slid up as far as Optimus Prime, as we'll see in other episodes where Autobots really get, like, really angry with each other. Really,
I don't want to take cover. I want to fight in the clear.
Yeah. There's a lot of bloodlust in like Ironhide and Wheeljack, and but then like Cliffjumper and Brawn get really mean towards like
other people,
Mirage and Perceptor for no reason and stuff. But anyway, the personality destabilizer, you know, takes those sliders from, you know, the good side of the thing and just slides them all down to the.
It's the one song. Is release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin.
What?
They release their inhibitions.
I just let it go. Let the good things go. Be evil.
Yeah, it's
anyway.
But it is cool to see that, like, this is the potential that the Autobots have to wreak havoc if they didn't have their moral boundaries and
Yeah.
Basically seeing that they're like kind of a bunch of thugs.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think this is a form of mind control at all, because he's not giving orders to them. It's just them going and doing bad things.
Yeah.
You
You kind of see that with Blue Streak and his interactions with Jazz.
My goodness, that scene is actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
When Blue Streak is trying to force Bumblebee into the recharge chamber.
You need to recharge.
Hey, Bumblebee, you need to recharge. And he's trying to shove him in there and stuff. That's actually kind of scary, man.
Yeah. It feels like the same vibe with anytime a zombie has like a brain.
Yeah.
Like it's just that their goal is to, make other people zombies and stuff.
Right.
It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
We'll see this like later with the hate virus and stuff. Where it's just taking someone who normally is like good and restrained.
Yeah.
And just cranking up their menace factor.
Yeah.
All the way up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's like, that's 10 times more terrifying than if it's like they're mind controlled and it's like, I know you're in there. You gotta fight it.
Yeah. Because this is showing like what else is in there.
Right.
Like
the bad stuff.
Yeah. It's like, when Luke says that, I know there's good in him about Darth Vader, it's like, you know what else is in there?
Yeah.
A child murderer.
It's like, oh. True that.
Anyway.
Jazz gets a good highlight this episode. Him testing his subwoofers at the bluff, hurling, I guess, a dumbbell?
Yeah, why do the Transformers have dumbbells? That's so funny to me. Like, do they have to work out? I guess maybe it's like a maintenance thing. Like, once Ratchet repairs a part, then they gotta break it in, They gotta use it a little bit so that it starts working. So that could make a sense why they've got a Transformer-sized dumbbell.
We also briefly saw Sunstreaker and Sideswipe arm wrestling in one episode. So,
yeah.
Why would they do that? Why would they do that if their strength was always cranked up to 11?
Yeah, well, I think that they're just number one, bros. Number two, I think that whether or not you have, mechanical super strength, arm wrestle is still a good pastime.
Oh, yeah.
Just for, a bunch of dudes to
just dudes being bros
or girls. I have arm wrestled some girls, and some of them even beat me. So.
Indeed.
Anyway.
But to counteract this personality destabilization as the Autobots go out and start wreaking havoc, which is terrifying to actually see them like ripping apart jets and...
Yeah. This is kind of the first, I know we had that weapons factory and a few scenes where people shoot a couple guns at Transformers in season 1, but this feels like the first time that there's like a human machine versus Transformer machine fight. And it's not really a fight, but it's like,
it's just a trouncing.
Yeah, because the Autobots are just wrecking jets that are on the ground, so it's not really a military fight, but
it is
we'll get to that
crazy to see them like genuinely being a menace, and we'll see it even later in this episode. It's easy to see them just tearing apart military equipment and not really caring about that, but seeing them in the city is like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Speaking of in the city, it's kind of terrifying just watching them like hunt down this human. And
Dr. Harding
is this the first female human?
A human who is a woman.
We went an entire season, 16 episodes without... Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. There is a female human who accidentally gets dubbed with a man's voice in episode 2, I think it is. And they show up in the background once in a while. But I think in this episode order, this is the first main character female human.
Named character who has stuff to do.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a personality.
Yeah. Dr. Harding, she's very hardy. She jumps out a window and is thrown into a wall while inside a dumpster and survives.
Yeah.
She is very hardy.
She's pretty cool. It's interesting that she she gets the message from the airbase that they're being attacked by enemy Autobots. And
I don't think it's even from the airbase. I think it's just a computer in her building.
Oh yeah, enemy
Which
Autobots
could be a
are
foreshadowing for Torque.
true. But yeah, it's interesting that she doesn't immediately question like, why are the Autobots attacking anything? She's just like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, enemy Autobots. Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
It does bring up a question of like, what is how well known are the Autobots at this point?
Yeah, what's the public perception of who the enemy is, like, on that poster?
Right.
There's probably some areas of the world where they're just like, I don't know, big robots. Those are the enemy.
Yeah.
And stuff. And heck, even if this connects in some loose way to the Torque episode, this like weird little enclave of people who are possibly
suspicious
scheming.
Yeah. Or also Megatron's master plan. It could probably help explain. This episode specifically could help explain why the humans in Megatron's master plan are easily swayed to get rid of the Autobots.
Yeah. But the Autobots like spreading out. They're systematically taking out the most severe threats to them: the Air Force and the Ground Force.
Yeah.
They have a small group that's hunting down these plans for the rocket.
Yeah. I guess Megatron did send them on these missions, but he just kind of left it up to them how to do it.
Yeah. It shows that how organized they are. In comparison to Decepticons.
It does. We see this in several episodes where they will split up because, there's like 20-something Autobots compared to the Decepticons, 10 or whatever.
Right.
So it's neat to see in other episodes where they split up into groups. They have scouting parties, they have raiding parties, they have, the main defense force, they have the main strike team, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's neat to see that, comes up in here too.
Yeah, there's and we've talked about it a bunch of how terrifying they are, but I think the one that really seals the deal is the scene where Harding is hiding from the Autobots.
Yeah.
She gets into a dumpster. There's like a line of 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then Hound shows up, doesn't know which one she's in, so just systematically goes down the line and starts crumpling the dumpsters in his hands.
Yeah.
And that tension that's building over, it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, and then Ratchet, he's got a good voice for being evil.
He's got a really good voice for being evil.
But when they bring him back, he's got a face of just, what the heck happened?
He's like, ugh.
Speaking of how do they bring him back,
boy.
Yeah, they Sparkplug and Jazz, I guess, develop the attitude exchanger, which Sparkplug explains as it creates purifying ions that flush out the negative energy or something.
It drains personality destabilizing energy while simultaneously recharging them with purifying ions.
It sounds like a spa yoga thing.
Yeah.
But I guess that would like push those sliders back up to the noble side.
It brings up the question of the that we even talked about in this episode.
Yeah.
The Cybertronian neurology and stuff. How does it even work?
Yeah.
We don't know.
It does seem to lie more on the machine than the organic side of it. And it may be something that he learned while tampering with Autobot X.
Yeah.
How to make something like this. But yeah, Sparkplug and Jazz get a good spotlight in this episode.
Yeah. Jazz for the good. Oh, wait, I thought you said Ratchet. Never mind.
Ratchet is like a menace in this episode because, like, I'll go ahead and skip ahead to this note. Ratchet and Sparkplug have a rivalry that's not explored quite enough. Even though they do work together in a lot of episodes, they also have this, like, friendly rivalry going on. But in this episode, it's ramped up to 11. And Ratchet is just stealing all the credit. He's like, I created the I created the what were they called, the attitude exchangers and decided to shoot them out at people. And it's like, no, Hound was the one that came up with shooting them, and Sparkplug, for all we know, made all of them.
Yeah.
What is up with Ratchet? I think he's just trying to overcompensate after having been evil, you know?
I think he's trying to overcompensate for not having a lot of screen time the past couple episodes.
Yeah. Speaking of somebody who doesn't get a lot of screen time, Skyfire shows up in this episode, and you said he was done for.
That's on me.
You thought last episode that he was done for and wasn't going to come back ever again, but here he is in season 2,
It's
stuck
good
in
to see
jet
him.
mode for the entire episode for some reason.
Yeah. Probably some legal thing.
Yeah, maybe some legal thing with Macross and all that. But
yeah, Skyfire, assuming he runs off of the same like recharging mode and stuff.
Oh,
like, how
yeah,
does he
with
fit into the recharge chamber?
right, he's so much bigger than the recharge chamber.
But yeah, he's back. This is probably the last one though. Maybe.
You think so?
It might be the last one.
We'll see about that.
It's probably gonna be the last one.
Yeah.
I'll be sad to see him go.
Yeah. Apparently, Hound can shoot over a mile.
Yeah, he's a mile into the sky. He's like, no problem. I've got this.
Yeah. Speaking of mile in the sky, let's talk about what Megatron wants with Dr.
Yeah, what is
Harding's
his actual plan?
Yeah. So Megatron speaks of the solar satellite as if no one on Cybertron has ever thought of solar power before, even though he made the solar needle a few episodes ago. But my wife pointed out a good counter argument, though. She said, maybe their star wasn't strong enough, or they didn't have one. Which reminded me that in the comics, Cybertron was a wandering planet, and we don't see a star in Season 1 near it. She's quite engaged with this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It follows good, like, feels like a James Bond ending.
Oh, yeah.
And
with the trying to stop the rocket and stuff. Yeah.
It's a good plot and good action to this one.
Oh, also, the Decepticons say they're going to fly the rocket back to Cybertron.
Yeah.
And that is possible because of what we established in the Season 2 intro video, that Cybertron is in Jupiter's orbit.
Next to Jupiter.
Yeah.
We can get there.
Yeah. Either in the same orbital path or floating around Jupiter.
Yeah, that point about Cybertron being a wandering planet and not having a star, it would explain a lot of why the Decepticons seem to have an obsession with hydroelectric power.
Yeah.
And
that's a good
they
point.
just
Because
don't experience it.
they don't have water on Cybertron. That's why Megatron's
Yeah, so if they
obsessed
don't
with
have
hydro.
sunlight on Cybertron, then they're probably just like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Which-
it is a good point. And just brings us back to that point that you made way back when about, the humans sharing the wonder of Earth with the Transformers, and then the Decepticons only seeing it as a plunderable resource.
Right.
Wow, this is something I've never seen before. Let's use it. I mean, there's even an argument to make a you could do a deep dive on the colonial aspect.
The colonial themes of the Transformers. Yeah.
With the Autobots being actual, like, hey, let's work together, and the Decepticons being, let's take advantage, know? There's a paper in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Somebody could write a paper on that. Sure.
A thesis.
Sure. Anyway, let's see what else we got in here.
I do love the terror of Skyfire being turned, because he's the biggest, he's a jet, and he's taking out
He actually
Air Force.
shoots down, like, Air Force planes and
Yeah.
stuff. It's okay, I could see their parachutes.
Right.
But...
Like, imagine this building-sized bomber just floating around.
Right. Yeah, because he is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, another thing that we need to discuss is Prime. This is a rare instance of Prime splits into 3 components, and they have to convert all 3 components with the attitude exchangers to rescue him.
Yeah, where his mind is split up in between these 3 that we never see.
Well,
We only see Roller a handful of times.
I believe you can take that little drone thing off and put it on top of Roller, and I think that's what we are seeing in, I believe it's Fire in the Sky, when he says, "We need more firepower." So he turns into truck mode, and then the trailer appears, and then this little turret rolls out of the trailer. You know? But then also back in More Than Meets the Eye, when he fights Megatron, his trailer transforms in the what is it, the command deck or whatever? Shoots
Gun on wheels.
and then it gets blown up immediately. But I think this is like one of the only times that it's drawn correctly.
Yeah. Actually, it looks like.
But we have seen it and Roller in a few episodes.
Right.
But this is like
Roller famously almost getting killed.
yeah. Roller. What about being Sparkplug? Roller. But yeah, this is like the only time that they reference in the cartoon that Optimus is like split up into 3 parts.
Yeah,
like they're all part of him. So I had to go back to Transformers Universe again, the guidebook we mentioned earlier, to figure out what's going on here, right? So Optimus's profile is much longer than Gears, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to go to the abilities part. And it says, in robot mode, Optimus Prime actually splits into 3 components. The Optimus module is the robotic sentient being that is the storehouse... I'm sorry, I can't not say that. Is the robotic sentient being that is the storehouse of his vast knowledge and strength. He can lift 4 million pounds.
Whoa.
There's a comma missing there, so... Anyway, and a blow from his fist exerts a force of 12,000 pounds per square inch. Jeez. He carries a laser rifle and can burn a hole in the nose cone of a Decepticon jet fighter at a distance of 30 meters.
How many pounds?
No, I'm sorry, 30 miles.
Miles.
We've talked about him being a sharpshooter.
How many pounds per square inch was that punch?
12,000.
12,000. Good lord.
Yeah, and he can shoot a Decepticon at 30 miles. We've talked about him being a sharpshooter. Aided by his outstanding visual acuity. His Prime Module, the Prime Module is also known as Roller. It is a small cart-shaped device that he uses to unobtrusively slip behind enemy lines. He can maintain radio control over it at distances up to 12,000 miles. I'm sorry, 1,200 miles.
Jeez.
Having Roller present somewhere is like being there himself. He can operate by remote control his combat deck module up to a distance of 1,500 feet. The auto launcher mounted on the deck can use a variety of artillery and radiation beam weapons, including most of those used by his fellow Autobots. The launcher also includes a high-dexterous grapple arm, which allows it to load itself and change its weaponry. The communications disc antenna mounted on the launcher provides a video link between Optimus and all his fellow Autobots within a radius of 50 miles. It can be adapted to a satellite hookup that increases its effective range tenfold. So that's the main part that I wanted to read there. Oh, no, actually, in his weaknesses part, it says, although Optimus Prime can function as 3 independent modules, injury to any one of the modules is felt by the other 2. Roller is particularly vulnerable, especially in the behind-the-lines situation in which he specializes. However, the Optimus module is by far the most important component of the trio. Although he could survive without the other 2, they could not survive without him. Otherwise, the only weakness he could be accused of is being too compassionate and concerned about the safety of others. He would be more effective military commander if he were more ruthless, but then he wouldn't be Optimus Prime.
Wow.
Yeah. So that implies that both Roller and the trailer died in the movie when Optimus died.
No.
But
nobody had a funeral for Roller.
It's very interesting that that's a concept that he's not just like radio controlling them, and they're not separate beings, but he's like, it's part of himself.
Yeah.
And that's why in this his
brain is literally split up between the 2.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that in
is Optimus a hive mind?
I guess. But it's interesting that this episode kind of does the opposite, the reverse, where They could have shot him with just one piece, it seems like, but then he transforms, brings the trailer and roller out of nowhere, and then splits into his 3 components, and then they have to shoot all 3 pieces with the attitude exchangers.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they actually bring that up in this episode.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. Is it his brain? Is it his soul? Is it his... And again, where's the Matrix?
Yeah. I think this actually solves a question that I've had all this time is like, okay, what if he can move the Matrix around between his different components, right? Like, that would explain why whenever they do a diagnostic thing or they break him apart or, clone him or something and the Matrix isn't inside the main Optimus Prime, that
it's in Roller.
It's in Roller. Roller is the true leader of the Autobots.
Follow my lead.
So maybe he can move the Matrix around, or he's just like, I don't feel like carrying this today. Here, Roller, hike for this. I would go into the trailer and go into subspace.
I'd love to see Roller come back into the spotlight.
I mean,
a storyline where there's like, all of these like uber powerful Autobots and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is your command, my liege? And it's just Roller.
Yeah,
just
like he doesn't
Mars
even
rover
transform.
Yeah.
Just this non-transforming little vehicle.
And beeps and stuff.
Yeah, R2-D2 noises.
Yeah.
Roller, what are we gonna do with it? Just imagine that Optimus died in the movie, and instead of giving the Matrix to Ultra Magnus, they gave it to Roller.
Yes.
And they're just like, Roller, what are we gonna do about Unicron? And it just speaks R2-D2 noises intensified.
Yeah.
Well,
at your service, my liege.
I read most of that profile, so I might as well read the rest. Optimus Prime, Allegiance, Autobot, Function, Autobot Leader, First Appearance, Transformers 1, Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Profile.
Beings.
If he had been on Earth, he would have been a doctor, a mechanic, a scientist, and a warrior. But on Cybertron, there is no difference between these professions. So Optimus uses his skills to heal and repair. That's kind of a neat... I wonder
really
if that's
cool.
inspired by Lord of the Rings, the Hands of the King or the Hands of the Healer.
Yeah.
Or the... Yeah, something like that. Anyway, which are the same things to Autobots. To improve the world around him and, if necessary, to fight. Both in power and intelligence. He has no equal. He has the personality of an Abraham Lincoln. He can be immensely kind, and his compassion extends to all that lives, including the creatures of Earth. Yet he will battle increasingly to protect the weak and defend what he believes in. To accomplish this, Optimus knows that the Decepticons must be defeated for all time. Anyway.
Nice.
There's my little...
Good little Optimus highlight.
Yeah. But anyway.
I love that if he was a human, he would be a doctor, a warrior, and mechanic, and a scientist, and stuff. It's like, that's
a real
cool.
Renaissance man.
Yeah. He would be the Da Vinci of our time.
Yeah. He's just a nice guy. And I love the part where he hugs Bumblebee in this episode.
Yes.
It's just so, Bumblebee, my friend, you rescued me.
Yeah, it's because he's so small.
Yeah. It's like he's hugging a child.
And
or
like,
something.
it's
such an intense moment, too, where B is like, I believe in you. You're not evil.
Yeah.
And Prime is like, help me. Which is an interesting thing. Part of that's like, they've already converted the other 2 components.
Yeah.
But how much of that is also just Optimus himself being like, I don't want to be evil.
Yeah. Probably a good chunk of it. Oh, yeah. It's cool that, like, having those 2 taken back to the good side gives him a foothold to actually, like, fight it and stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, like, the... I know you're in there, you're not evil trope is done to death a million times.
Yeah.
But it says a lot for this episode that I was actually invested in it.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, you can do it.
We've had this time building up Optimus Prime as, we've talked about his character arc a little bit, and at this point he is, much more compassionate, so we hate to see that all go to waste at this point. It's like, oh man, you were doing so good, you were becoming so, empathetic and stuff, and humane.
Yeah, and if
So,
we're talking like influences that this episode has had on future iterations, weirdly enough, Age of Extinction, I think. I mean, not Age of Extinction, The Last Night.
Oh, where Nemesis Prime and he fights Bumblebee. Yeah,
quote unquote Nemesis Prime.
Right.
Purple-eyed, red Kratos tattoo. Optimus Prime. Repeatedly tells Bumblebee, "I'll kill you." And yeah.
Apparently they had to like force Peter Cullen to say that line, and then they just reused it over and over again.
I'll kill you.
But anyway, yeah, I always say that in any long running show, you know, like Star Trek or Transformers or, you know, Justice League or something like that, there's always the episode where it's like the mind control episode, the evil twin episode, the evil clone episode, the corrupted hero episode. You know, you pick and choose one of those. Well, Transformers decided to do all of them.
Do them all.
Because this is the corrupted hero episode, then we'll have the evil clone episode later, and then we'll have, I think there's an evil twin episode at some point too, you know. Anyway, but yeah, I also have a note that Jazz snaps his fingers. Apparently I thought that was important.
Yeah, he does a little
I just
Which,
like,
if you think
oh
about
no,
it,
I know why, because it has like a little Batman pow sound, a little effect around it.
And if you think about it, a Transformer snapping their finger would make a really loud sound.
Yeah. But
we mentioned it, but this whole rocket sequence of them like riding the missile and trying to get it, you know, fixed, like Ratchet's like, I just need a little bit of time. And then Optimus shooting off the Decepticons and fending them off, and then Jazz doing his whole radio sequence and
which that would probably actually, you know, heavy radio waves, rockets are so delicate anyway that, you know, it probably would actually damage it.
Yeah, it really feels like the end to a James Bond movie or something.
Yeah, and then Optimus just yeets the satellite into orbit.
Yeah.
I guess
they say that this satellite is going to give them unlimited energy.
Yeah. So I guess the Earth just has perpetual energy now, which I think the world probably needs the energy because the Decepticons keep stealing it.
Yeah, it's like perpetual
episodes.
Energy is great and all, but if you can't keep the perpetual energy,
right. And I think since the last one got lost in Heavy Metal War, you know, with the Earth's magnetic field or generator or whatever it was, they were gonna draw power from that. Since it got lost, it would explain the shift from this, like, you remember in season 1 when we were talking about season 1 seems like some sort of post-apocalyptic, you know, very dry Earth where everything's deserts and canyons and stuff like that,
right.
And we never see cities very often, you know. I think that this victory in this episode, and this needs to come early in season 2, to explain that the Earth has perpetual energy, to explain the shift from the post-apoc season 1 to the totally 80s season 2.
Yeah. Like, they had a big enough energy shift to where it's like, you know what, we can have dance clubs on every street corner.
Yeah.
That seems to be a place that a lot of episodes go for some reason.
So I think it helps explain, it helps confirm my theory that the Insecticons created this, like,
energy plague.
yeah, and then the Decepticons kept stealing stuff, and anyway. Good episode.
Yep.
I like
very
this
good.
episode. Anything else you want to say?
Pretty straightforward Transformers action that, you know, a lot of the episodes dip into, like, you know, the goofy and absurd territory.
Yeah.
But this one, like, plays it pretty straight, and I think for the better. Like, Transformers-specific episodes that are... Transformers-specific issues are always great.
Yeah. When we get to dive into a little bit of, like, the lore, kind of.
But not even really the lore. It's just, like, you can't really have situations like this without Transformers.
Right.
To the same level of threat.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned action, and I wanted to point out that we were talking about Transformers using their alt modes in their fights to escape or to rebound, and we see that in this episode with I think it's Rumble. He turns into a cassette to escape being grabbed by one.
He does a stop, drop, and transform.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, so that's
good stuff.
It for the episode recaps. Let's move on to our segments. All right, for our segments. First up, best quotes and weird robot lingo.
Noteworthy one-liners, dialogue, or weird robot versions of idioms.
Yes.
From Autobot Spike, we have Optimus Prime saying, "Oh boy, Spike!"
Oh boy. There's the doctor when they're trying to figure out a way to save Spike, and he's just like, if only there was a way we could separate his mind from his body. He's very...
It's like, I can't imagine this being foreshadowed at all.
Nobody would ever consider that option.
Yeah. Spike.
Dad! His first words is Autobot X. Just... Dad!
It's kind of terrifying, but also kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then also Spike again, just, I'm a monster! He has like a little burp stuck in his throat before he starts. And then, of course, when I've been quoting all this time, just Megatron saying, "We are sentient beings."
Sentient beings. Spike promising to make them pay real bad.
It's like a Dinobot dialogue.
Yeah. It's hard to think, man.
Yeah. Changing gears.
Optimus randomly shushing the other Autobots.
It sounds like some sort of like, you know those like swishy
Sweatpants.
pants, those sweatpants that when you slide them against each other, they're like.
It's like... Or it
That's
sounds
what.
like...
That's what Mom always said that the Dragon Ball characters, whenever they go Super Saiyan, sound like was snow pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, yep.
When Gears gets abducted, Optimus sounding very relieved when he says, "They got Gears."
It's like, oh, good, we don't have to listen to him complain anymore.
Yeah, there's no not Gears, no.
Gears just coming out with some zingers, just like, go ding your diodes and get defunct, Megatron. I'm not helping you do zilch.
It's like flabbergasted. Watch your profanity, Gears.
Optimus mentions titanium torsion bars. I'll bet my titanium torsion bars on it.
That sounds like something leg related.
Yeah. Gears saying, always happy to oblige, but I'm not sure why.
Yes. Gears saying, "You are one evil son of a retro rat."
I love being a slave, or do I? Sure thing, Starscream. Oh yeah, that's the same.
Yeah.
You junkyard reject. Bumblebee too. I think it was Ravage.
Yeah. Happy to be of service. Wish I wasn't, but I am.
Gears summing up the retail service.
Basically. Ironhide's like, "What did you do to Gears? You turned him nice." Which kind of contrasts with them wanting to lobotomize him later.
Right.
And then Bumblebee calling... Oh, this was to Ravage. Was a photovoltaic...
No. This is what Bumblebee says about Gears.
Oh, okay.
You made he's now a photovoltaic pussycat. What does that even mean?
I think it's another flora and fauna right up there with ailerons on a moose bot.
Is that even a word? Let me Google that real quick.
Photovoltaic?
Yeah.
It is implying that there are photons, which are light particles, applied to a voltage charge.
Relating to the production of electric current at the junction of two substances exposed to light. So apparently they have solar-powered kitty cats on Cybertron.
Which doesn't make any sense if they're considering solar power as like, this is revolutionary.
Maybe it's like half plant, half cat.
Or it's implying that it's applied to the situation at hand where there is light being applied to energy.
Yeah.
Or it's just a funny word.
It also kind of connects to his special gear card being, or his Gears special chip being used, cassette being used to operate the solar needle.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to City of Steel.
Nagging like hyper-driven chatteroids.
Just chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
It's just the...
Long haul with I think this quote gets applied to him the most.
This is amazing.
Remove, always remove. I didn't join this outfit to be a dump truck.
He literally turns into a dump truck. It's so funny.
Implying that he applied for the job and then got assigned an alt form.
Yeah. Well, like we discussed in Heavy Metal War, I think that the Constructicons' new bodies were built on Earth.
Right. So he literally did not join this outfit to be a dump truck.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe on Cybertron he was like something else.
He was a jet.
Yeah, he was a jet. What kind of construction was he doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's that nosy, no good-a-con Laserbeak.
No good-a-con.
No good-a-con.
No good-a-con.
If you interfere one minicon, Megatron says, which is the first reference to minicons, which would be a big thing. You know, like we've got the mini bots, but like we don't have mini cons. Is that what the cassettes are? Are they mini cons or like? Is he referring? Is it kind of like scraplets?
Oh, this one he's referring to it as a unit of time measurement.
No, I think that it's like if you interfere 1 inch or something.
Oh, okay. I guess you could say that.
But then, of course, they become famous in the Unicron trilogy.
Yeah.
With finesse and pleasure.
I'm going to start saying that.
Yes. Excellent work, Hook. You're an artist.
He's actually praising one of his subordinates.
And then Optimus fires back with, Hook just assembled me, but he wasn't very neat.
Yeah.
But then the epic line of, as long as power flows through my circuits, Megatron, I'll fight you.
Yeah.
Optimus.
As long as power flows through my many circuits, my ability to be disassembled and still retain my hive mind.
Well, yeah. I mean, we discussed Optimus having a hive mind with Roller in the trailer,
My
so why
many
not
components.
with his limbs? His disassembled limbs.
Optimus, I can sense the presence of my legs.
Me in the morning when I get a Charlie horse.
It's me on leg day.
You ever have that where you wake up in the morning and then just the muscles in your legs just cramp
like,
up? It's like, you know, you got the Spring by Vivaldi playing. That's probably the wrong one, but anyway. Anyway.
The combined
Alligator Con. And then Optimus calls it a jigsaw puzzle of a reptilicon.
Gosh.
These are both good names, but like, what is it?
Yeah. One more volt and I'd have been too pooped to zap.
Okay, Blue Streak.
I'm too pooped to zap all the time.
Yeah. That does not compare to Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey with the dogs and the cat.
I'm too pooped to poop.
Yeah.
I love that when Devastator knocks away the helicopters and he's like, it's just like King Kong, and then the plan doesn't work, and Hound saying, maybe Devastator saw the same movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that actually elevates the whole joke to a higher level.
Yeah. Because like we discussed, they really want you to know that they're doing a King Kong.
Yeah. It's so on the nose that it doubles back on being funny.
Yeah. And then Megatron getting mad at Spike for calling him Mega Klutz.
And it actually like triggers him and he's like, why you?
And on to Attack of the Autobots.
Optimus has a warning diode that pulsates.
Yeah, my warning diode is pulsating. Okay, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They call Laserbeak a Turkeytron.
Turkeytron.
And I like the part where he's like a kite.
Yeah.
Then Megatron creates the tagline for the episode. The Autobots will experience a transformation they won't expect.
Yeah.
That seems like a tagline that would go on a movie poster or something.
It's like, tune in next week as the Autobots experience a transformation they won't expect.
A musical sonic boom. Good old jazz.
Yeah. That one, honestly, I feel like characterizes jazz really well.
Good old jazz.
Good old jazz.
Why you wouldn't know a microchip from a potato chip? Ratchet is so mean to
Ratchet just like decides to round on Sparkplug this episode. He's like, listen here, you little.
Yeah. So who was your favorite character in this batch of episodes and why? On to our next segment. Who is your favorite character in this batch of episodes?
It could only be one, Gears.
Yes, yeah, Gears is my choice too.
Gears steals the show.
He's so good in this in his episode.
Yeah.
Even though he's only in that episode of this grouping of episodes, I just, he's a standout character.
He's grand.
On to our next segment. Magic Slidey Hand Tech. Any notable gadgets Transformers pull out of their various body parts?
Autobot Spike is essentially the Magic Slidey Hand Tech, the bot.
Yeah. He has the claw machine arm, like, from the claw.
Yeah.
But
It's,
he's much better at it. Since he's not trying to steal your coins and actually trying to grab things, he's much better at it
Yes.
than those machines.
He has a chest laser.
He has a boob laser.
Yeah. It's the headlight that's on his chest.
Yeah.
And he also has powers he hasn't even discovered yet, so who knows what else he can do.
Right. Gears has a gun up his sleeve.
Like a literal gun up his sleeve.
Yeah. It's not that his hand retracts and then comes out as a gun. No, he has a gun in his hand when he comes back out. But he also has a welder.
Yeah.
His hand does retract and turn into a welder.
Like a weirdly detailed welder, too.
Yeah, an arc welder or something.
Ironhide has a grapple hand thing.
Yeah.
And it comes from the same port as the liquid nitrogen.
Yeah. Optimus radio controls his limbs.
Prowler has a little bola gun attachment. It's not really magic hand tech. It's just, I just think it's neat. It just makes sense because he's a cop.
Apparently, Autobots have reset relays, which is what Jazz hits when he throws the dumbbell at Blue Streak.
Oh, yeah. I think it's just he hit him hard enough.
Yeah. I've always thought, you know how basically a concussion occurs when a human's brain slams against the inside of the skull?
Yeah.
I always thought that for robots, there's just like a button on the computer chips inside their brain that when they get jostled, the button pushes against the inside of their cranial structure, and that causes them to knock out.
Exactly.
The button just switches them off for a reset. But Ratchet's wrist wrench, he
just has a little compartment that just has a really basic wrench.
Yeah, just a normal wrench in his sleeve.
Dad's favorite wrench.
Yeah. Jazz has huge speakers and hip lights, as usual.
Yeah. This isn't the first time that we've seen those, right?
No, and it will not be the last either.
Okay.
Sometimes they show up different than they do in episodes.
Yeah, it's always like a different format.
But it's quite often stuff comes out of his hips and...
Well, in this one, he was also testing out new ones.
Right. But yeah, anyway, on to our next segment. Favorite errors. Any noteworthy animation, sound design, or lore mistakes? Autobot Spike. It's not really an error, but I like the rustic look of some of the animation. It has a rough texture.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially just because it hasn't been digitally remastered,
Right.
But I also just think it's neat.
Yeah. It's always good to see him not glossed up and stuff.
Right.
Seeing him a little beat up.
Yeah. Changing gears. First it's Skywarp, then Starscream on top of gears.
Yeah. So much.
Common mistake. Cliffjumper gets zapped by the wrong laser. We already talked about that.
Yep. There's a scene where he's micro-sized. Gears is micro-sized. He's about the size of Starscream's foot.
Yeah,
I think it was just a layering thing with the background, but...
You got Legends class Gears and Masterpiece Starscream.
Yeah.
Anyway, City of Steel. Oh boy, other than the usual ACOM shenanigans. I love the part where Spike says, "Take a left," and they turn right.
Yeah.
But to be fair, maybe they had to turn right to go left. Like cars.
Yeah.
They had to get off on the exit to go left.
Right.
But anyway, Optimus' signal spiral just kind of ends and then cuts off as the gator is brought ashore.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
There's Sideswipe and Scrapper have the same voice actor.
Yeah,
and
Michael Bell.
There's a part where Sideswipe voice goes over Scrapper's and it's just very jarring.
This happens a lot in ACOM episodes for some reason.
And then also the vocoder were cut out a bit and you hear Scrapper's horrible wheezing voice.
Yeah. So it's just in this episode it's just Sideswipe talking through Scrapper.
Yeah.
But Optimus falls a long way for what Scavenger's reach is.
Right.
It's implying that Scavenger's his sniffer arm when he smacks the bottom of the thing is a mile high.
Yes.
Anyway, Attack of the Autobots.
There's a shot of the control panel that is just reused over and over and over.
Oh yeah,
again.
yeah, it's the same shot, and even though Megatron blows it up, it's perfectly fine in the next shot because it's supposed to be different control
Exactly.
panels. And then we got Chonky Wide Ratchet. It's like the Wide Putin meme, just Wide Ratchet.
He is huge. Thick boy.
Yeah, anyway. And on to our next segment.
Yes.
TF Wiki Go Button Trivia, where we each talk a little bit about a random page on TF Wiki.
Exactly.
So my page this week was Richard Branson.
Yes.
Which is a real life person who owns Virgin Airlines. Richard Branson runs a large company called Virgin from United Kingdom. I believe it's named after his dog. Their activities involve cleanup operations, which he oversees personally. His intentions are genuine, but he doesn't object to a little publicity along the way either. He's smart enough to know that you don't get sharks in the Thames, though Jawbreaker disagrees. And so what happened, basically to sum up this page, which is a pretty short page, you can just go read it yourself. The reason he's on TF Wiki is even though he's a real life person, they needed a character. He shows up in one of the Marvel UK Transformer comics. And in the notes it says, originally this story would have featured a character who was merely Bronson-esque, but Lee Sullivan had a bit of fun drawing a full-on Bronson likeness. Long story short, they thought it was funny. They approached the company and asked if they could use his likeness and wanted to do like a little crossover thing, and they said, yeah, sure. And it tied in with his Clean Up Britain campaign at the time. So
that is amazing.
So yeah, Richard Bronson was originally in the Transformers UK comics, the little picture here, he says, as well as showing people how serious I am about my environmental project, having Virgin's name splashed across the country's newspapers can't hurt. But anyway, he's spotted.
He's got such a radical smile.
Yeah, and
like, hey.
I guess in the story he helps clear out some Decepticons from the Thames River. Eventually, when they reprinted this issue, in one of the collections, they had to redraw the character and rename him. They renamed him as Mr. Johnson because apparently something to do with the reprint, they couldn't get the rights back to put him in it again.
That's fair.
But anyway,
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a funny instance of a real life celebrity being just in the story.
I like the fact that he was also like on board with it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, sure, man.
Sure, why not? It couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt to have Virgin's name.
Yeah. Anyway, so
mine is actually the command unit from the Armada video game.
Yeah.
So this was the part of.
Is that the one with the sword?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate fighting them.
Oh, they're so
they're
so
tough.
intimidating. They are tough. And you don't really have good melee in
They're
that game.
very interesting in that for that game they came up with a whole instead of fighting Decepticons, you fight an army of what are called Decepticlones.
I think so.
Which are Transformer-sized robots that are basically drones.
Yeah, they don't transform though.
Yeah, but they have a bunch of like different variety. There's so much good design for all of them.
Yeah, I love their designs.
Like the light units are these little scrunchy guys that kind of look like the most robot-like.
Yeah.
The medium units have this weird split head design that they look very like Halo inspired with the way that they're divided up and stuff, but the designs are very distinctly Transformers.
Right.
Heavy units are giant, like massive ones, but the command units get introduced later on through the game, and they actually have the ability to command the smaller ones, and the AI on them is like really well done. They actually do command them to like form up and
and if you
make
take
firing lines and stuff, and
if I remember, if you take them out, the drones are confused for a minute. Aren't
yes, they actually kind of look around and are like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But they have a sword. It's not actually their arm. It's like a gauntlet that they hold on
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
These guys are very like Covenant Elite sort of inspired.
Yeah.
They have a missile in their shoulder that they can fire.
Oof.
And they're very fast.
Lots
They
of
usually attack you, like just kind of dash towards you and hit you, which puts you into a knockdown.
Yeah, and they
which are
always
very difficult to get out of in that game because of the physics.
They also like always show up in like close corridors and
Yeah.
stuff, so they trap you all the time.
Yeah, because you
Until
see
you
them
get to
off
the
in the
island
distance
at the
and you're
end,
like,
yeah.
it's the Alaska level that you first encounter them in, and you're
I
like,
thought it was on Tidal Wave.
yes, you encounter one on Tidal Wave.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like out in the open and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, I can handle these guys. And then they're in the caves, and you're like, leave me alone.
Yeah. Or in the starship too.
Yeah, the Starship one, they're in mass, but
They're a little easier to escape on the island.
yeah, they're pretty good.
That's
They
a fun-
also have a cloaking field that they use. They
Oh
can
yeah,
active
they
camera.
can. Yeah.
I like
you can
that
still
they,
kind of detect them, but they're harder to see.
Yeah. TF Wiki has two noteworthy entries. They say, unusually for drones, command units seem somewhat malicious in their approach to destroying Autobots. They do not always attack on sight, preferring instead to sneak up behind a target and deal surprise attacks.
Yeah.
They have also been known to stalk targets long distances before ever attacking.
Yeah.
And the thumbnail for them has a very appropriate description, is middle management from hell.
Yeah. Yep.
They really are. But yeah, very cool. Decepticons as a whole are just a very cool concept. Very well executed.
Yeah. Now, unless you got anything else to say, we can go ahead and move to our new segment.
Yep, no, let's go.
So we're introducing a new segment. We're calling it the Cliffhanger Questions. One of us will ask the other a random Transformers-related question at the end of the episode, and then next episode, they will give the other person who was asked a question will give their answer.
Yeah.
So this episode, I'm going to ask Hayden, what is your least favorite Transformer and why?
Ooh. Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to let that marinate. I'm gonna have to let
Yeah.
that stew.
Yeah. And so next episode, you'll have to tune in. You'll have to wait until next episode to find out his answer. Thank you all so much for joining us and listening to our ramblings.
That is the show. We hope to have you all join us again next pod episode, where we'll be discussing Transformers episodes Traitor, The Immobilizer, The Autobot Run, and Atlantis Arise.
A lot of fun next
There's
episode.
some fun ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time of the recording, just a reminder, these Transformers episodes are available on the Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel, as well as on DVD and several other streaming services such as Tubi. With that, catch up with where we're at, and we will see you later.
Yeah. Until next time, roll out.
Roll out.
Ba 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 da ba.